Chapter 1097. Old Taoist Ling Su was a genius in cultivation, but he was by no means an expert in formations, let alone an expert in engineering. Therefore, Old Taoist Ling Su could not answer Wang Sheng's question. Not only could Old Taoist Ling Su not answer, but even the Grand Abbey Dean and the five hierarchs could not answer it. In addition, the old Taoist of the Qing generation who lived near the shabby Taoist temple could not answer it either. The question seemed simple, and they even thought it was reasonable when they walked in and broke the formation. However, no one thought about how the passage was built. Just as Wang Sheng said, since the passage had been blocked by the stone wall and the formation, how was the passage behind it dug? Where did all the stones that were cut out go? No one could figure out the answer to this question. Everyone turned to look at Wang Sheng with pleading gazes. The stone wall we saw was a whole piece. Wang Sheng told them what they saw. Everyone nodded. This was what they saw. Seeing was believing. There could be no illusion. In fact, when we first saw a complete stone wall, at the beginning, it wasn't a complete stone wall. Wang Sheng paused for a moment, waiting for everyone to understand his words, and then explained, but after 1,000 years, under the effect of the formation, a pile of fragments was compacted into one piece. Under a constant and uniform pressure, even metal could be fused from the fragments after 1,000 years, let alone stone. The reason why Wang Sheng checked the fragments was to see if the material inside was as uniform as normal stone. Obviously, the fact was as Wang Sheng expected. The fragments of the stone wall seemed to be a whole piece, but some parts were different. This also proved Wang Sheng's guess. The stone wall was not a whole piece in the beginning, but it was slowly compacted into one piece over a long period of time. That was the only way to explain how a passageway could be excavated behind a complete stone wall, as well as the whereabouts of the excavated stone materials. The materials used in this Taoist temple should have been obtained locally, using a portion of the stones that were excavated. Wang Sheng pointed at the shabby Taoist temple. Although the Taoist temple was not big, the walls were all made of stone. Wang Sheng had already noticed that it should be the same kind of stone as the stone in the passage. It was just that after being exposed to the sun and the wind for thousands of years, the weathering and erosion were slightly different. Among the 5 sect masters, 2 of them had already begun to turn towards the Taoist temple and began to study the walls of the Taoist temple. Among the remaining 3, one of them went straight to the valley that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had just inspected. He gathered a large pile of gravel and placed it in front of the Taoist temple to study. Wang Sheng did not continue to talk about his discovery. He wanted to wait for everyone to verify it first. For the Grand Abbey Dean and the others, the journey to the land of inheritance was like a process of solving a riddle. It was intoxicating and irresistible. No wonder the ancestral records said that the land of inheritance was not that simple. So that's why. After studying the gravel, one of the sect masters had to admit that what Wang Sheng said did make sense. The other sect masters nodded at the same time. Even the Grand Abbey Dean nodded. Wang Sheng could not help but ask the old Taoist curiously, what did the ancestral records say about the land of inheritance? The array of inheritance is very powerful. The old Taoist answered without hesitation. The opening of the land of inheritance requires the unity of all the sections. Only those who are truly qualified to receive the inheritance can open the array of inheritance. What else? Wang Sheng did not hear the statement that the land of inheritance was not that simple, so he continued to ask. Also, only the disciples who can truly understand the true meaning of the inheritance can find the real array of inheritance. The old Taoist answered quickly and blurted out, "The true meaning of the inheritance?" Wang Sheng was stunned. Then he laughed. "What do you mean? Pure heart and few desires? Tranquil and inaction? Or natural Taoism?" "I don't know." The old Taoist shook his head and said, "If I knew, I might have found it long ago. Perhaps the benevolent see benevolence, and the wise see wisdom. You guard your own path. That is the true meaning of the inheritance." "This is what I like about you, old Taoist." Wang Sheng laughed. "You never impose your own ideas on others. If everyone was like you, old Taoist, there would be less disputes in this world." Everyone at the side listened to the conversation between the two of them with a thoughtful look on their faces. "Let's go." After sighing, Wang Sheng called out to the old Taoist and reminded the Grand Abbey Dean, "Let's go in and take a look." They entered the passage again. When they passed by 3 stone walls, Wang Sheng deliberately stopped to verify it again. Some fine details on the walls and ground proved Wang Sheng's judgment once again. The stone walls that originally seemed to be one with the walls were not the original stone material. When they arrived at the space with the lousy statue again, Wang Sheng once again gave the sect masters and old Taoist Ling Su the opportunity to explore again. They first went in and carefully checked to see if there was really anything different. However, this time, they encountered a problem. Other than the direction they came in, the stone walls on the left, right, and front were completely normal stone walls. They were complete mountain rocks, and there was nothing unusual at all. Old Taoist Ling Su did not believe it and deliberately asked Wang Sheng for a carving knife. He took a sledgehammer and swung the knife, chiseling off several pieces from the 3 walls. The falling stones all showed that this was a space carved out from a whole boulder. "Forget it, I'm not guessing anymore." The old Taoist was a little disinterested. This kind of puzzle-solving process was obviously not the old Taoist cup of tea. It was not to his liking. After a few setbacks, the old Taoist did not want to play anymore. The sect masters and the Grand Abbey Dean observed carefully. One of the sect masters felt that old Taoist Ling Su had overlooked a direction. There was only an entrance the size of a passageway in the direction they came in, and there was actually a large piece of wall. He did not believe it and deliberately chiseled on the walls on both sides of the entrance. However, the result was the same. It was a whole piece of stone, and there was nothing unusual. They did not find the inheritance formation, but instead, they chiseled some holes in the originally orderly space. This made the Taoists feel a little ashamed. In the end, all eyes were still focused on Wang Sheng. "Tell us, don't keep us in suspense." The Grand Abbey Dean smiled bitterly at Wang Sheng and said, "Where is the inheritance formation?" After saying that, he deliberately added, "Don't worry, there will be scum like Tongming. Those who can be here are the true elites of our Taoism." "Abbey Dean." Wang Sheng smiled and nodded. He hinted, "Actually, everyone has overlooked a direction. Didn't you notice?" Chapter 1098. There was another direction? The crowd was baffled. They looked at Wang Sheng, then followed Wang Sheng's line of sight, and finally came to a realization. The ground. Everyone was paying attention to their front, back, left, and right, but no one paid attention to the ground. This was a common misconception. They all thought that since it was a road, it must be front, back, left, and right, but no one thought that when they were at a dead end, up and down, could also be flexible. Walking from a narrow entrance of the Taoist temple, they had been heading downwards, but everyone felt that they were walking forward. They never thought that when they reached this place, they would actually have to walk downwards. The straightforward sect leader moved quickly. He grabbed a carving knife and a sledgehammer, squatted on the ground, and began to chisel. With a series of clanking sounds, a pile of broken stones appeared on the ground. The sect leaders did not wait for him to chisel through the wall. One by one, they went forward to pick up the broken stones and began to examine them. After a while, everyone's expressions became strange. The stones that had been chiseled out of the ground were no different from the ones that had been chiseled out of the wall. They were the same stone, made of the same material. It was obvious that they were part of a single boulder. Since it was a single boulder, it meant that the wall and the ground were connected. If that was the case, wouldn't it be a joke to find the inheritance formation by walking underground? The sect leader who was chiseling the ground also stopped. He found a piece of stone and looked at it. His expression changed. Everyone's eyes once again turned to Wang Sheng. Although no one said anything, the meaning of their gazes was clear. They wanted an explanation from Wang Sheng. "Sigh." Wang Sheng sighed. Before he could speak, old Taoist Ling Su spoke on Wang Sheng's behalf. "Such a large piece of ground. Could it be that all of it is a passageway?" Everyone suddenly understood. Indeed, a passageway only needed 1 or 2 people to pass through. However, the ground was more than 100 feet long and a few feet wide. It was impossible for there to be a passageway everywhere. Next, Everyone began to search again. From the place where they had just entered to the furthest corner of the wall, the sect leaders moved very quickly. They had almost chiseled through the entire piece of ground. However, the results were very depressing. No matter where they were, the results of their chiseling showed that the floor was also a complete piece, completely integrated with the wall, inseparable. They looked suspiciously at Wang Sheng again. Two of the sect leaders' gazes were already filled with impoliteness. Fortunately, there was more trust than suspicion in the other's eyes, which made Wang Sheng feel very gratified, but also very strange. The Grand Abbey Dean and old Taoist Ling Su were very familiar with Wang Sheng. It was understandable for them to trust Wang Sheng. How could the other three headmasters trust Wang Sheng as well? This was what Wang Sheng did not understand. "Elder, are you sure it's underground?" The headmaster, who had been hammering for a long time, asked straightforwardly. Wang Sheng nodded with certainty, but still didn't explain. "But we've already dug through all the underground locations," the headmaster said impatiently. "In fact, there isn't." Wang Sheng smiled. "There's still one place that hasn't been chiseled." Everyone was puzzled. There's still one place? All the parts of the ground had clearly been chiseled. How could there still be one place? All of a sudden, the oldest among them came to his senses. He looked at Wang Sheng with a face full of shock. As soon as he moved, everyone suddenly understood what was going on. There was indeed one place on the ground that no one had chiseled, not to mention chiseling that they didn't even touch it. The sitting statue of the old lord. The sitting statue of the old lord that stood alone in the middle. This was the statue of the patriarch. Even if everyone wanted to find the place that led to the inheritance array formation, no one had waved a carving knife at the sitting statue of the old lord. This was the respect that the disciples of the Tao sect had for the patriarch. Even if it was just a stone statue, they treated it very seriously. They saluted and worshipped it, not daring to show the slightest bit of disrespect. However, Wang Sheng actually said that there was still one place that hadn't been chiseled. Obviously, he was referring to the sitting statue of the old lord. Oh my God! The few sect leaders screamed in their hearts. They couldn't accept such a crazy idea from Wang Sheng. Chiseling the sitting statue of the old lord? Was Wang Sheng crazy, or were they the ones who had gone crazy? If you think that the true meaning of inheritance is that the statue of the patriarch can't be moved, I think it's better that you don't look for the inheritance array formation. Wang Sheng's low voice sounded slowly, without the slightest emotion. He said it so calmly. Everyone quietened down and thought about Wang Sheng's words. No one knew whether Wang Sheng was right or wrong. Even the Grand Abbey Dean and old Taoist Ling Su couldn't tell. Can't we chisel down from the surroundings and chisel the stones around the patriarch statue before moving the patriarch away? The straightforward sect leader who was holding a hammer and chisel suddenly said a compromise, which made everyone's eyes light up. That's right. Chisel down from the ground without destroying the sitting statue of the old lord. Chisel the stones under the sitting statue and move the old lord away. Wouldn't that be the goal? This way, the old lord sitting statue wouldn't be damaged, and they could also find a way down. It was killing two birds with one stone. If I were you, I wouldn't use this idea. Before everyone could cheer or take action, Wang Sheng had already said, "You can stay still, but don't use this kind of trick." Believe me, do you really think that the inheritance left behind by the patriarch is for you to not dare to disobey the teachings of the patriarch, to not dare to question the slightest bit, and to be rigid and dogmatic? If that's the case, what difference does it make to you whether you want this inheritance or not? Everyone was silent, pondering over Wang Sheng's words. "Old Taoist, didn't you say that you're deviant?" Wang Sheng asked old Taoist Ling Su. "I've eaten and drank in the scripture depository. Do you dare to smash the old lord's statue?" Old Taoist Ling Su raised his head and looked into Wang Sheng's eyes. Wang Sheng's eyes were extremely pure, without the slightest fluctuation. Suddenly, old Taoist Ling Su figured it out and laughed. "That's true. Since I've broken the rules of drinking and eating meat, what's the big deal about smashing the old lord statue? If the patriarch's spirit is in heaven, He definitely wouldn't want to see us trapped here by a stone statue of the patriarch. The Grand Hall Master followed old Taoist Ling Su's train of thought and also laughed. The Grand Master must have hoped that we, the younger generation, would be able to surpass him and not follow him obediently. I understand now. The 5 patriarchs were naturally not mediocre people to be able to become patriarchs. The words of old Taoist Ling Su and the Grand Abbey Dean enlightened the 5 of them instantly. They looked at each other and suddenly smiled bitterly. However, although it was a bitter smile, they all felt as if they had suddenly been enlightened. In fact, you didn't notice that the old Lord's statue has the same circles on several different parts of the statue as on the stone wall outside, right? Wang Sheng's voice sounded again in a relaxed manner, reminding everyone. Chapter 1099. Wang Sheng's words shocked everyone. They thought that they had already observed the place carefully enough, so how could they have missed such an important feature? Don't be surprised. The circle on the stone wall is concave, while the circle on the statue is protruding. It's normal to miss it. Wang Sheng explained to everyone with a smile. It was also a way to save face for them to not find the circle. If everything Wang Sheng had said before was just a guess, and even smashing the old Lord statue was just a guess, then the fact that there was a similar circle on the old Lord statue was almost proof. It was still the same sentence. It was a mistake made under fixed thinking. They had overlooked something that they should have noticed long ago. Everyone's eyes immediately began to circle around the statue. The hair bun, the pendant on the belt, the scroll in the hand. There were circles in several places. Just like what Wang Sheng said, the statue was protruding and not concave. This misled everyone and caused them to not notice these places. Now that they counted carefully, there were exactly 6 circles on the statue. They were exactly the same as the ones on the stone wall. Thinking back to what Wang Sheng had said, and then looking at the 6 circles on the old Supreme Elder statue, everyone could not help but lament that their cultivation was still insufficient. They had not been able to understand the painstaking efforts of their ancestor, much less understand the true path of inheritance. Just like what the Grand Abbey Dean said, the patriarch hoped that his disciples could surpass him and make more breakthroughs than the patriarch. However, the unfilial disciples that the patriarch had placed high hopes on were still struggling with the problem of whether the statue of the patriarch could be destroyed. It was really shameful. Since there was such a clear hint, the crowd no longer doubted it. After a brief discussion, they all burned incense and bowed to the statue of the ancestor. After taking the initiative to apologize, the crowd began to take out their respective key handles and face the circles on the stone statues. The Bright Connection sect master was no longer qualified to participate. The key that belonged to their sect was in the hands of the Grand Abbey Dean. At this moment, the Grand Abbey Dean joined in. He took a key and placed it on the stone statue. Under the command of the elderly headmaster, everyone began to inject their spiritual energy into their bodies in unison. Judging from the previous stone walls, this process would take at least half an hour, so everyone waited patiently. The stone statue might last a little longer. Wang Sheng reminded them in time so that they wouldn't let their imaginations run wild. Why? The old Taoist helped everyone ask the reason. Even though they were injecting spiritual qi, it was only activating the array on the key. For the Grand Abbey Dean and the 5 Hierarch Masters, it was not a difficult task. At this moment, everyone had enough time and energy to listen to Wang Sheng's explanation. The 3 stone walls all have slight formation fluctuations. Wang Sheng didn't keep them in suspense and quickly explained, the formation is connected to the outside, so it will be faster. Ancestor Master's statue doesn't have the slightest ripple of an array formation. We completely need the array formation on the key to shatter everything, so it will definitely take a little more time. The reason was easy to understand, and everyone understood it instantly. One was to coordinate from the inside and the outside, so it had a double effect. The other could only attack from the outside, so the effect would definitely be different. It was not unacceptable for it to take a little longer. However, the Hierarch Masters were a little embarrassed. They were the Hierarch Masters of Taoism, and had been in contact with Taoism for many times longer than Wang Sheng. But this time, it was Wang Sheng who helped solve most of the problems. If not for Wang Sheng, they might have missed the land of inheritance. Everyone pondered while activating their spiritual energy. It seemed that Wang Sheng could understand the arrangement of the ancestor better than everyone else. The Grand Abbey Dean and the old Taoist Ling Su were especially touched by this. From the Taiji Fist to the 9 words incantation to the Tao Te Ching that would pop out a few chapters from time to time by Wang Sheng. Everything made the two of them have an illusion that the true inheritance of Taoism was with Wang Sheng and not in the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. After 15 minutes of continuous input of spiritual energy, the Grand Supreme Lord statue gradually began to shake, almost exactly the same as the previous vibration of the stone wall. The difference was that this vibration went deep into the ground and not transmitted horizontally. With the vibration, everyone was even more expectant. If not for Wang Sheng's explanation at the beginning that there was no array formation in the Grand Supreme Lord statue, so it would take a longer time, everyone might have suspected it in the first 15 minutes. After all, the first 3 stone walls had started to vibrate when the keys started to vibrate. Now that they discovered that the stone statue was shaking, everyone's heart was getting hotter and hotter. After opening this door, the real land of inheritance was right in front of them. Everyone began to ponder about what the real inheritance was. This vibration lasted for 45 minutes, adding up to an hour, before everyone heard a series of cracking sounds. It was the sound of shattering from an unknown depth under their feet. This sound also showed that their previous hour of hard work was about to see the results. The sound became louder and clearer from the ground. Just as everyone was anticipating, the Grand Supreme Lord statue, which was as tall as 2 people, suddenly shattered like the 3 stone walls outside. Everyone was already prepared. The moment the stone statue shattered, they all jumped away, allowing the stone statue to completely shatter into pieces. The scene of the stone statue shattering into pieces did not happen. All the pieces fell on the spot, and then fell into an unknown depth. When the pieces scattered, everyone saw that the original position of the Grand Supreme Lord statue had completely turned into a black hole the size of the base of the statue. Others did not listen carefully, but Wang Sheng listened very carefully. After those pieces fell, Wang Sheng heard the sound of falling into the water a few seconds later. There was water below, and it was about 70 meters high. It was about the same height as when Wang Sheng fell when he first came to this world. The Grand Abbey Dean and the 5 sect masters leaned their heads over to the side of the black hole and looked down. Only Wang Sheng and the old Taoist were still sitting on the fishing platform, watching their actions without moving. "Elder, Patriarch, why don't you come over and take a look?" The Grand Abbey Dean looked for a while and could not figure out anything. He looked up and saw Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su sitting there, and could not help but ask. Interestingly, he now called Wang Sheng first and the old Taoist second. "What's there to see?" The old Taoist priest muttered. "It's a dark world to begin with, and there's a huge hole that's so deep. It would be strange if you could see anything from looking at it like that. I, the old Taoist, understood this when I was in the core of the land of thousand despair." Chapter 1100. Just as old Taoist Ling Su had said, he really couldn't see anything from this angle. Other than a black hole, there was nothing else. At most, he could see something at the edge of the hole with the help of the bright candles. It was absolutely dark inside. Putting aside the fact that this hole was tens of meters deep, there was no light in the surroundings. Back when Wang Sheng was undergoing training on Earth, there was a wooden box with walls completely painted white. It was very shallow, and there was a small hole the size of a ping-pong ball in it. Looking in from the outside, it was pitch black. As light could not diffuse out from the inside, it could not be seen. It was just a shallow wooden box. The hole was at least 70 meters deep. It would be strange if he could see anything. Wang Sheng wasn't the only one who heard the sound of water. The old Taoist also heard it and said quickly, "There's water down there. It should be a tributary of the river." "Not necessarily." Wang Sheng shook his head and said, "It might not be a tributary of the river, There's still some distance between here and the river, but it must be related. There's a tributary of the river? The Grand Abbey Dean couldn't help but ask when he heard the conversation between Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. The Grand Abbey Dean knew that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist went to explore the terrain. He also knew that there was a big river on the other side of the mountain, but he didn't know that there was a tributary of the river. It's a fork at the bottom of the river. It should be an underground river. Old Taoist Ling Su answered, but he didn't explain how they knew there was an underground river at the bottom of the river. Old Taoist Ling Su had seen many things in Wang Sheng's hands, but he knew that he couldn't tell outsiders. He couldn't tell him how he got into the water and how he moved freely underwater. The Grand Abbey Dean did not intend to get to the bottom of it. He was very clear that with the cultivation of the old Taoist Ling Su, not to mention the river on the other side of the mountain, which was not considered a torrent, even if it was a deep and fast-flowing river, the old Taoist Ling Su could easily come and go. What now? The straightforward sect leader asked again. Another door had opened in the land of legacy. What should they do next? The door is already open. Of course I'll go down and take a look. Wang Sheng replied with a smile. Looking at the black hole, the reporter reminded, prepare the rope. With such a deep hole, it was only natural that they had prepared a rope. Wang Sheng had never thought of jumping down. Who knew how deep it was down there? The old Taoist's hands and feet were very nimble. It didn't take long for them to set up the windlass on the well platform. The rope was long enough. As long as the person grabbed the rope, the Taoist priest would shake the windlass, and the person would be easily lowered down. I'll go first. Old Taoist Ling Su sighed and volunteered to take the lead. This was the territory of the capital, and there were no strong demonic beasts in the surroundings. However, there were no absolutes in this world. It was better to let old Taoist Ling Su, who had the strongest cultivation, go first. If there was any danger, the old Taoist would be able to protect himself. Let's go together. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had a tacit understanding, so he took the initiative to accompany the old Taoist. The others had no objections. Everyone watched as Wang Sheng and the old Taoist each held a torch. Then they stood on the wooden plank below the rope. They grabbed the rope with one hand and slowly lowered it down. The light of the torches in their hands became dimmer and dimmer. When the rope was lowered for more than 60 meters and the torches were only the size of beans in everyone's eyes, there was finally a signal from below. Stop! Wang Sheng's estimation was wrong. The water below was very deep. Even if they jumped down directly, they wouldn't reach the bottom. However, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist stood on the wooden plank less than 3 inches above the water. The torch shone in all directions, but they didn't find anything else. It seemed that if they didn't go underwater, they wouldn't be able to find any clues. The old Taoist easily made 2 holes in the wall of the well and inserted their torches into them. Then, he turned to look at Wang Sheng. Same rules. The old Taoist asked calmly. The water was very deep, but it was so dark that nothing could be seen clearly. If they wanted to know what was down there, they would have to go down. However, it shouldn't be too dangerous. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist didn't sense any ferocious demonic beasts. As for whether there would be strong traps or ambushes, Wang Sheng wasn't worried at all since they were in the water. Even if it was Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow, how much power could it have in the water? At most, it would have a range of more than 10 meters, and its power would be greatly reduced. With a strong protective suit, there was nothing to worry about. Let's go. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist put on their protective goggles and hard masks. Wang Sheng even tied his personal combat terminal to his cuffs. Only then did he bid farewell to the old Taoist. Both of them took a step forward and stepped into the water. After entering the water, Wang Sheng turned on the flashlight on his personal combat terminal. A beam of light penetrated the bottom of the water, illuminating most of the water. This was a military terminal, and waterproof was the most basic requirement. The old Taoist seemed to know that it wouldn't be strange if Wang Sheng could make something that could fly. He wasn't surprised that the thing in his hand could light up. He just followed the light and looked around the water. The most conspicuous thing at the bottom of the water was a large pile of gravel. Needless to say, this was the gravel that fell after the Lao Zi statue shattered along with the 70-meter wall of the well. When Wang Sheng and the old Taoist priest ascended, they discovered that the walls of the well, which were more than 70 meters long, were originally one. Unless they used a formation to shatter the entire well wall using the principle of resonance, they would probably have to chisel through the 200-meter wall. Under normal circumstances, it would be considered patient to chisel through 1 to 2 meters, 3 to 4 meters, or even 5 to 7 meters. No one would believe that there was a passage below if it was more than 100 meters. The land of inheritance was well protected. Without figuring out the key, it would be impossible to open the passage easily. The underwater thruster began to bring the two of them along to search bit by bit. The water was very clear, and they could see very far. It was far from the low visibility of the river outside. Moreover, the water was still. This was an underground lake, not a river. However, the water was not stagnant. There should be a source and an exit, but the flow was very slow. The underground lake was very large, with a radius of 2 to 3 miles. Other than the part of the passage where they could see the water surface, most of it was under the stone mountain. If they wanted to breathe, they could only return to the area with a radius of less than 100 meters on the other side of the passage. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist could stay underwater for a long time, so they didn't care at all. They searched along the edge of the underground lake bit by bit. After half a circle, Wang Sheng finally found a passage that was about the height of a person. It was dark, and they didn't know where it led to. After pointing it out to the old Taoist, Wang Sheng controlled the underwater thruster and brought the two of them into the passage. After entering for less than 100 meters, there was a slight light above their heads. When they got out of the water, they realized that it was just a small natural hole for breathing. It was only 2 to 3 square meters in radius. Above them was a stone wall and a narrow hole that only revealed a little light, providing them with fresh air. Chapter 11:01. After taking a few breaths, the two of them continued to dive underwater. In fact, the two of them did not need to stick their heads out, but they still had to bring people in later. If Wang Sheng did not want to expose his equipment, he would have to prepare it for the others. The passageway was very long. About a few hundred meters ahead, there was another place where they could breathe. After swimming for a few kilometers, they saw the end of the passageway. When they emerged from the water and shone their flashlights, they found that it was another passageway that was almost exactly the same as the one underwater, except that it was not immersed in water. Continue forward or go back and bring them here? Wang Sheng asked old Taoist Ling Su. Let's go back and bring them. The old Taoist pondered for a moment before replying. After all, it's not just the Taoist temple's business. Wang Sheng nodded. Then, he and the old Taoist priest left 2 torches here. They found a relatively thin rope from their storage ring and tied one end of it here and the other end of it on their body. They turned around and dove into the water. The rope was loosened bit by bit. This could be considered as a guidepost for the people underwater. At every place where they could breathe, Wang Sheng tied the end of the rope in a conspicuous place. They went all the way back to the bottom of the well. Fortunately, the rope was long enough to connect from one end to the other. The Grand Abbey Dean and the 5 sect masters had been waiting anxiously. If it were not for the fact that old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation was strong enough, they would have been worried that Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su had met with some mishap. Finally, they heard the voices of Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su coming from the bottom of the well. Everyone was instantly energized. The 2 sect masters personally turned the windlass and hoisted the 2 of them up from below. As soon as they came up, they were shocked to see the 2 of them dripping wet. Were they going to enter the water again? There's no danger down there, but there's a waterway to go. Old Taoist Ling Su briefly explained the situation down there, leaving everyone speechless. The ancestral master had left behind an inheritance, but he still wanted to torture the younger generation like this. They really did not know what the ancestral master was thinking back then. Be content. Wang Sheng seemed to have guessed something from everyone's expressions. He laughed and joked. It's good enough that Grandmaster didn't leave any killing moves in the passage. It's just a section of water. I've already prepared a rope. You won't be able to see it when you go down. Just follow the rope. As for holding his breath for a period of time, Wang Sheng didn't mention it at all. The cultivation of the Grand Abbey Dean and the sect masters was enough for them to hold on for a long time. The ancestor wants us, the younger generation disciples, to accept the legacy, not to kill us. The Grand Hall Master found Wang Sheng's words interesting and could not help but laugh. Leaving a killing move in the passage is not to guard against anyone, right? Since they were already here and knew that there was a path below, who would be willing to stop here? After a short discussion, they decided to go down and take a look. With Wang Sheng holding the rope to lead the way, they did not have to worry about getting lost even in the dark. As long as they held the rope carefully, those who did not know how to swim could hold their breath and walk through the bottom of the lake. However, it was slow underwater. Without the help of Wang Sheng's underwater thrusters, it took Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su twice as long as they walked and swam. Before entering, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had searched the bottom of the lake for a long time, including the time they spent exploring the path. When they came ashore, they did not have time to change their clothes. Once they used their skills, their clothes were dried in a few minutes. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su held their torches and continued forward along the passage that no one had ever walked through before. What followed was a smooth journey without any twists and turns. After a while, Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su's footsteps stopped in a natural grotto. Before entering the grotto, the people behind them could already sense the powerful fluctuations of the array formation inside. Everyone's hearts surged as they quickly rushed into the grotto. With the light from the torches in Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su's hands, they saw the situation in the grotto. The grotto was not small and could fit hundreds of people. However, in the middle of the large grotto that could fit hundreds of people, a huge stone pillar stood between the ground and the ceiling of the grotto. The stone pillar was as thick as 4 people. In fact, it was not a complete stone pillar. At least a quarter of the stone pillar facing them had been hollowed out. The strong fluctuations of the array formation came from this stone pillar. In the hollowed-out area, there was a green ball floating in the air. For the time being, they could not tell what material it was made of, and there was nothing supporting it. It just floated in the air abruptly, and it looked very strange. The green ball was the size of a soccer ball, and it was still spinning slowly. The patterns on it changed from time to time, and there was not a single moment that was exactly the same. Outside the green ball was a translucent barrier. The transparency of the barrier was very high. It allowed people to clearly see the situation inside, but it also allowed people to easily see the barrier. Wang Sheng looked at the green ball and felt the strong fluctuations of the array formation. He asked old Taoist Ling Su, could this be the legacy array formation? Probably. The old Taoist had not come into contact with it before and was not sure. However, whether it was the old Taoist, Wang Sheng, the Grand Abbey Dean, or the other sect masters, they all knew that this was definitely the legacy array formation. After such a long time in the land of inheritance, they finally saw what the legacy array formation looked like. Didn't you say it was a scroll? Wang Sheng looked at the rotating green ball and did not know how to describe his feelings. If it was a scroll, they could still flip through the information and find something they were interested in. However, this was a green ball floating in the air. How could they obtain the legacy? Give it a try? The old Taoist did not answer Wang Sheng's question. There had never been an ancient book that said that the legacy had to be a scroll. It was just everyone's guess. How could they give it a try? There seemed to be no other choice but to touch it. The straightforward sect master was the first to bear the brunt. He called out to the others and walked forward. He reached out and touched the rotating green ball. Obviously, he could not touch the green ball directly. This time, he only touched the translucent barrier outside. When he touched it, nothing happened. Just when everyone was surprised, something unexpected happened. A powerful force suddenly came out from the barrier, and the headmaster who touched it didn't even have the chance to resist. His entire body was sent flying for half a day. When he landed, the old Taoist had already caught him below with his sharp eyes and quick hands. However, even with the old Taoist cultivation and the soft force of Tai Chi, he was still knocked back 3 steps by the force of the sect master's body. Seeing this scene, everyone gasped. They had already entered the land of inheritance and seen the legacy array formation. If they did not even have a chance to touch it, it would be a big joke. Chapter 11:02. No matter what, they had already arrived at the land of inheritance and seen the inheritance formation. The next thing they had to consider was how to obtain the complete inheritance. Old Taoist, what's recorded in the ancient books? Wang Sheng asked old Taoist Ling Su. Since the land of inheritance had records, there should be detailed records of the inheritance formation too, right? The inheritance formation is very powerful, the old Taoist replied casually. I saw it. What else? Wang Sheng watched as old Taoist Ling Su helped the sect master up. Fortunately, neither of them were injured, but the recoil force made the sect master unable to move for a while. That's all. Old Taoist Ling Su replied innocently. That's basically what it means. To be more specific, it means that there's no way to destroy it or break it. Otherwise, the inheritance will be destroyed. Then how are the younger disciples supposed to receive the inheritance? Wang Sheng asked in surprise. That's all the records of Laojun Temple. The old Taoist replied with a smile before turning to the other sect masters. Perhaps other sects have more detailed records. My sect's records are similar. The old one sighed and revealed his sect's records. It's all the same. The other two said the same. Sect Master Tongxian, you moved so quickly. You must know something. Wang Sheng turned to the headmaster who had just managed to sit up and asked, how did your sect record this? It was not appropriate for the Grand Abbey Dean and old Taoist Ling Su to ask such questions. Only Wang Sheng was suitable to ask so that no one would misunderstand that Laojun Temple was coveting other sects' ancient books. The contents are similar. Sect Master Tongxian waved his hand. I'm an impatient person. I want to try the inheritance formation as soon as I saw it. It was a little presumptuous of me to start. Thank you, Patriarch. It was only then that Sect Master Tongxian slowly recovered. Given his identity as a legendary expert, one could imagine how powerful the inheritance formation was. By the way, didn't Lao Junguan say that there are 9 secret words of Buddhist incantations? The Abbey Dean said that the Xing formula is specially used to deal with arrays. Why don't you try it? Sect Master Tong Xian remembered clearly that the Grand Hall Master had said this when he was rebuking Sect Master Tong Xian. Therefore, he said it immediately. The Grand Abbey Dean did not stand on ceremony at all. He slowly walked to the front of the translucent barrier and began to use the row formula. Like Wang Sheng at the beginning, the Grand Abbey Dean's Buddhist incantation of 9 words was only at the elementary level. He had to stand still for a long time to adjust his aura and the fluctuation of the tactical formation before he could start. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist watched quietly. The other sect masters did not dare to disturb the Grand Abbey Dean. After almost half an hour, the Grand Abbey Dean let out a sigh of relief and slowly reached out his hand to touch the translucent barrier. Everyone watched as the Grand Abbey Dean's hand approached the barrier and touched it. Then, nothing happened. The sect master Tong Xian did not get repelled by the Grand Abbey Dean. It was as if the Grand Abbey Dean's hand was touching a translucent board. It took half an hour for the Xing formula to be synchronized with the tactical formation. It seemed that the Grand Abbey Dean's Buddhist incantation of 9 words was only at the elementary level. However, it was obvious that the Grand Abbey Dean's cultivation was limited. His hand touched the barrier and was not repelled. However, that was all he could do. He could not go any further. It was impossible for him to touch the green ball that was rotating and changing inside. No, the Grand Abbey Dean retracted his hand and shook his head. He said regretfully, my cultivation is not enough. I'm still a little off. The other sect masters were a little disappointed. They could see the inheritance in front of them, but they could not touch it. It was a terrible feeling. The 2 sect masters also used some unique techniques of their respective sects to try to get through the translucent barrier. However, one of them was repelled like the sect master Tong Xian and was caught by old Taoist Ling Su in the air. This time, He did not retreat and easily deflected the force. The other sect master was not repelled. However, like the Grand Abbey Dean, he was blocked outside the barrier and could not go any further. Be it Wang Sheng or the old Taoist, they had been watching coldly from the sidelines. It was not that they did not want to know about the Taoism inheritance, nor was it that they were not interested. It was the rule. The most qualified to inherit the Taoism inheritance were the 7 sects of Taoism, Laojun Temple, and the other sect masters and sect masters. They were the Grand Abbey Dean and the other sect masters. The sect master Tong Xian betrayed his sect and merged with Laojun Temple. Now, there were only the 6 sects of Taoism left. The most qualified to inherit the inheritance were the 6 people in front of them. Unless the 6 of them could not get in touch with the inheritance, they could only think of other candidates. Now, only the Grand Abbey Dean and the 3 sect masters had tried, and there were still 2 who had not made a move. Before they proved that they had failed, Wang Sheng and Ancestor Ling Su, although they were much higher in seniority than everyone present, they were still not qualified to touch it. Everyone understood this logic. The remaining 2 sect masters carefully pondered for a moment, then cautiously stepped forward and attempted to make a move. However, they did not directly start from the translucent barrier. Instead, they tried to think of a way from behind the stone pillar. However, as soon as their hands touched the stone pillar, they were repelled by a force stronger than the translucent barrier. One of them spat out blood in the air. Fortunately, the injury was not serious. After spitting out the extravasated blood, a healing elixir was taken to control the injury. This time, it could be said that the 6 sect masters had no chance. Old Ancestor, please give a try. The old headmaster sighed and asked old Ancestor Ling Su. They were all Taoist sect masters. No matter how bad their tempers were, they always had some open-minded and sage-like demeanor. If they could not do it themselves, they would not crazily suppress others. Ancestor Ling Su did not stand on ceremony. He nodded to the several sect masters and walked directly to the barrier. Like the Grand Abbey Dean, he began to display the Xing character formula of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. The old Taoist display time was much shorter than that of the Grand Abbey Dean. In less than 10 minutes, the old Taoist began to stretch out his hand. From this point of view, the old Taoist realm of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words was at least 2 levels higher than that of the Grand Abbey Dean. Under the gaze of everyone, the old Taoist Ling Su's hand touched the barrier very calmly, and nothing happened. No one was surprised at this. The ancestor's cultivation was so high that even the Grand Abbey Dean was fine, let alone the ancestor. It all depended on whether the ancestor could go further and touch the green ball. Ancestor Ling Su's hand, in front of everyone's expectant eyes, moved forward 2 inches, almost penetrating into the translucent barrier, pressing a 2-inch deep hole in the barrier, but still unable to break through the barrier. It looked like it was less than half an inch away from the barrier, but this half-an-inch distance was like a natural moat, lying between the green ball of inheritance and the old Taoist hand. Chapter 11:03. Everyone saw that the old Taoist had also failed. Now, the only hope was Wang Sheng. Of those who could enter, the Grand Abbey Dean and the hierarch did not have a chance. The old Taoist priest, who had the strongest cultivation, could not break through the barrier. Everyone's last hope was Wang Sheng, whose cultivation was even more powerful than the old Taoist priests of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. The 5 headmasters obviously didn't believe that Wang Sheng was the creator of a 9 words incantation at first. They all thought that this was a rumor released by the Laojun Temple in order to give Wang Sheng a high seniority. It was just a name, but in fact, it was to win over Wang Sheng. Everyone knew that Wang Sheng had mastered the secret of the Land of Thousand Despair, and everyone was waiting to unravel it. It was understandable that the Laojun Temple used such a method to win over Wang Sheng. If it were their respective sects, they would probably be willing to pay such a price. It was nothing more than Wang Sheng's friendship with Ancestor Ling Su that gave him the upper hand. Whether it was the 9 words incantation or the Tai Chi fist, who would believe that it was created by a young, an outrageous junior. How could a person who had never come into contact with Taoism come up with such a secret technique that was in line with the true meaning of Taoism? Therefore, these two secret techniques must have been created by ancestor Ling Su himself, but he gave them to Wang Sheng. Not to mention that the Laojun Temple had promoted Wang Sheng to the position of ancestor's junior brother. It must be to give some comfort to the old Taoist. What did it mean to accept a disciple on behalf of a master? Wasn't it just passing on skills on behalf of a master? In fact, it was a master who taught him skills. Let Wang Sheng try. This face had to be given. Not to mention anything else, it was thanks to Wang Sheng that they could find this place. After such a long time, the few of them had not found any clues on the lousy statue. They had to rely on Wang Sheng to solve the riddle. It wouldn't take too long to give it a try. It could be treated as a reward for Wang Sheng's hard work. When Wang Sheng stood in front of the barrier, no one had any objections. No matter what, there was no objection to Wang Sheng giving it a try. The ones who were truly looking forward to it were probably only the Grand Master and Old Taoist Ling Su. Old Taoist Ling Su, in particular, knew that Wang Sheng's Buddhist incantation of 9 words was many times more powerful than his own. When Wang Sheng used the 5-word formula at the same time, the effect was 5 times that of his. The Grand Abbey Dean and the Old Taoist Ling Su were well aware of what those sect masters were thinking. However, they would not argue with them as long as Wang Sheng was qualified to try. Compared to the Grand Abbey Dean's nearly half an hour and Old Taoist Ling Su's 10 minutes in front of the barrier, Wang Sheng's time could be said to be the shortest. It was so short that he was ready to make his move as soon as he walked over. Whether it was the Grand Abbey Dean or Old Taoist Ling Su, their cultivation of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words was still at the stage where they needed to recite it continuously. However, Wang Sheng had long passed this stage. When he used the 5-word formula at the same time, the high-frequency ultrasonic waves could not be heard by others at all. Wang Sheng had already made his move, while the others were still trying to figure out what to do. The inheritance formation indeed lived up to its name. Even though it was a silent move, it took Wang Sheng a full hour to understand the barrier of the inheritance formation. After figuring out the principle of the barrier, Wang Sheng could not help but admire the Taoism patriarch for being able to maintain such a balance of yin and yang, defense and attack, in such a small space. Furthermore, it was so well hidden that even an expert like Old Taoist Ling Su could only understand half of the formation. The Old Taoist could not reach his hand into the barrier because there was another layer inside the formation. This layer was a kind of hidden attack. Together with the defensive method, it formed the innermost layer that could cast an invisible force that could repel anything that wanted to enter. The closer the distance, the deeper he pushed, the stronger the repulsive force. Therefore, the Old Taoist could only push down 2 inches at most. He could not go any further. The 2 layers were so close that even Wang Sheng only knew this principle, but he could not do it himself. He could not imagine how powerful the Taoism patriarch's cultivation and formations was to be able to set up the formation to such a superb level. Reaching out, Wang Sheng's hand slowly moved towards the barrier. Unlike the Grand Abbey Dean and Old Taoist Ling Su, Wang Sheng only stretched out 1 finger and easily touched the barrier. Everyone thought that Wang Sheng would still be blocked by the barrier like the Grand Abbey Dean and ancestor Ling Su. However, under their disapproving gazes, Wang Sheng's finger easily broke through the translucent barrier, as if it had pierced through a piece of window paper and easily reached inside. In an instant, everyone's eyes widened. The Grand Abbey Dean and Old Taoist Ling Su were pleasantly surprised, while the 5 sect masters were stunned. They watched as Wang Sheng's finger continued to stretch forward, and the tip of his finger touched the floating green ball, which instantly stopped spinning. Then, Wang Sheng's finger quickly withdrew, and the green ball continued to spin. After withdrawing his finger from the barrier, Wang Sheng turned around and looked at the crowd. Everyone was also staring at Wang Sheng, dumbfounded, and for a moment they were all speechless. How is this possible? The sect master, who had a straightforward temper could not believe his eyes. He opened his mouth and exclaimed, "So it's all true." The oldest sect master murmured with a look of realization on his face. The other sect leaders didn't say anything, but the shock on their faces showed how shocked they were. A group of sect masters and patriarchs could not do anything about the inheritance formation, but Wang Sheng easily broke through it with just one finger. How could they accept this? What is true? Old Taoist Ling Su heard it clearly and directly asked the oldest sect master. In the past, we thought that the 9 words incantation was created by you, patriarch, and placed on the elder. The sect master was not afraid of offending people, and directly said what he thought at that time. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I know that it is really the 9 words incantation that the elder created. The old Taoist pointed at the sect master and did not say anything else. The Grand Abbey Dean asked Wang Sheng curiously, why did the elder withdraw his hand? The floating green ball should be the inheritance left by the Taoism patriarch. Since Wang Sheng could touch it, he could naturally accept the inheritance. Everyone was interested in the inheritance and wanted to know what was recorded in it. Everyone was very surprised that Wang Sheng suddenly withdrew his hand. I touched it just now. Wang Sheng pondered for a moment, and then said his plan. Indeed, there are some things that I can't explain clearly that were passed to me. Hearing what Wang Sheng said, everyone became excited and urged Wang Sheng to continue. I feel that although these things can't leave this inheritance formation, I can feel it indirectly. Wang Sheng smiled and asked the people in front of him, my Tao is not good, so it would be a waste to feel it myself. I wonder if the sect masters are willing to feel the Taoism inheritance through me? Chapter 1104. If it was something that could bring great benefits to Wang Sheng, under such circumstances, Wang Sheng would definitely take it for himself. Even if he could not get all, he would still be able to get most of the benefits. However, this was the inheritance of Taoism. When Wang Sheng came into contact with it just now, he did feel a refreshing feeling like a warm breeze blowing through his entire body. However, this was of no use to Wang Sheng. At the end of the day, Wang Sheng was not a pure disciple of Taoism. If he really wanted to accept the inheritance from the founder of Taoism, it would simply be a waste of the careful arrangements of the founder of Taoism. Moreover, the most fundamental reason why Wang Sheng wanted to find the inheritance of Taoism was to let old Taoist Ling Su comprehend a more powerful meditation method to observe emptiness from it. He wanted to use it to help May Air control her natural charm. In addition, with the charm of the 9-tailed celestial fox's primordial soul, May Air would not lose control because of the improvement of her cultivation. As for other things, such as the change in identity after accepting the inheritance, Wang Sheng did not care at all. Therefore, when Wang Sheng realized that the feeling on the green ball could be transmitted, he immediately retracted his finger without hesitation and shared this opportunity. Indirect feeling? Everyone was surprised for a moment, which immediately turned into ecstasy. Old Taoist Ling Su and the sect leaders were not Wang Sheng. They had an unparalleled fanaticism for the inheritance left behind by the founder of Taoism. They were originally depressed that they did not have a chance, but Wang Sheng suddenly threw a huge golden pie in front of them. If we were not willing, would we still have stayed in Mount Laojun for more than a month? It was the straightforward sect leader Tong Xian who spoke first. He did not hide his thoughts and directly thanked Wang Sheng with a smile. Thank you, elder. The other sect leaders were originally a little embarrassed, but now that Tong Xian stepped forward and gave everyone a good way out, everyone immediately went down the slope and bowed to Wang Sheng. Thank you, elder. As for the Grand Abbey Dean and old Taoist Ling Su, they already knew Wang Sheng's purpose, so they were not surprised that Wang Sheng made such a decision. The old Taoist was even more straightforward. After thanking him, he immediately began to clean up the ground. Who knows how long this inheritance will take? Let's make this place more comfortable. Also, let the people outside know not to worry. The old Taoist was thoughtful. He spoke casually, but there was a hint of command in his words. Also, bring a few more juniors that we focus on training. If there's a chance, let them bask in the glory and experience the style of the founder. The old Taoist was the most respected in terms of seniority. He was also Wang Sheng's senior brother. They were very grateful that Wang Sheng was willing to share the opportunity with everyone. At this time, naturally, whatever the old Taoist said would go. Moreover, what the old Taoist said made sense, so they began to arrange according to the old Taoist instructions. It was necessary to inform the outside. It could be said that the people inside were the highest level of Taoism. If anything happened to them inside, the world of Taoism would probably be in chaos. In addition, the old Taoist said to bring a few juniors in, which was exactly what everyone wanted, who did not have a few personal disciples. If there was no chance, then there was no chance. No one would regret it. As long as there was a trace of opportunity, it was good to be able to experience it. Wang Sheng was willing to share the opportunity, and the old Taoist gave these leaders and their closest juniors the opportunity. This was simply a great favor. Whether it was Wang Sheng, old Taoist Ling Su, or the Grand Supreme Monk, they had earned a great favor this time. This was only the benefit of the favor. The real Taoism inheritance was not included. Didn't you see the Grand Supreme Monk giving Ancestor Ling Su a thumbs up with a face full of admiration? Old Taoist, if you were so smart back then, would you still be running around every year because you couldn't get used to this and that? Everyone followed and left, informing the people of their sex and bringing their juniors. The Grand Supreme Monk also went out to make arrangements, leaving only Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su. Wang Sheng smiled and said to the old Taoist, "This is what I've learned from you all these years. Didn't you carve the three pure ones have a smiling face and a dignified face?" The old Taoist priest didn't hide his change at all. In the past, it was cultivation to dislike dogs and hate dogs. Now, it is also cultivation to smile and be a good person. Everyone calls me Elder Ancestor. It is not bad to taste all kinds of flavors. It seems like it won't be long before you go out to kill people. Wang Sheng nodded and said casually, "I have to." The old Taoist sighed. Some people already want to shit on Taoism's neck. If I don't kill a few people, many people will think that Taoism is easy to bully. Fortunately, killing people is also cultivation. I just need to cultivate properly once. This time, the Bright Connection leader colluded with Shanyue Kingdom to capture the Taoism leader and the land of inheritance in one fell swoop. This had already infuriated the entire Taoism. Don't think that everyone was looking for the inheritance formation peacefully and waiting to receive the inheritance. Once this happened, Taoism would definitely set off a bloodbath that would make all vassal states tremble in fear. Taoism had existed in this world for thousands of years. It was more than twice as long as the various vassal states. It was definitely not because it was peaceful and didn't care about the affairs of the world. Maybe after thousands of years of peace, some people had the misconception that Taoism was easy to bully. That's great. Wang Sheng smiled. The more ruthless you are, the safer I will be in the future. I'll prepare some things for you later. No matter which vassal state you go to, leave them in the capital's palace when you go. I guarantee that after a few hundred years, their descendants will firmly remember to never provoke the Dao sect in their lifetime. Other than Bao Qing Yutang, the Dai clan seemed to be the only one related to Shanyue Kingdom. The hatred between the Dai clan and Wang Sheng was definitely unresolvable. The Dai clan was definitely waiting for Wang Sheng's value to disappear. They would immediately turn hostile and attack him. Of course, Wang Sheng was willing to let the Dai clan suffer heavy losses. The old Taoist attack was terrifying enough. However, Wang Sheng didn't mind putting 10 tons of explosives made of military black gunpowder in the Dai clan's palace. He wanted to let them know what it meant to sit on a dirt plain. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su stayed here to wait. The sect masters and the Grand Abbey Dean were relieved. Since Wang Sheng had agreed to share the inheritance with everyone, there wouldn't be a problem. Otherwise, he could keep receiving the inheritance under everyone's gaze. The two of them didn't wait for a long time. They calculated that it would take at most half a day before the Grand Abbey Dean and the 5 sect masters returned to the inheritance formation. Along with them were 6 young Taoist priests. Just based on their cultivation, The 6 young Taoist priests were on par with Wang Sheng. In fact, some of them were even stronger than him. Obviously, they were the successors that the sects planned to groom. Besides them, there was no one else. Even if there were, they would be guarding outside the Taoist temple. Now that everyone had arrived, everyone was just waiting for Wang Sheng to begin. They wanted to share the feeling of the Tao sect's legacy from Wang Sheng. Chapter 1105. The 6 young Taoist priests had already been warned on the way, so they knew where they were and what they should and should not do, and what they should and should not say. Those who could be trained as heirs were definitely not fools. Naturally, there was no doubt about their loyalty. When they came in, the leaders just greeted them casually, but the 6 young Taoist priests all paid their respects. After paying their respects to Ancestor Ling Su and Elder Wang Sheng, they respectfully stood apart and waited for instructions. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had already tidied up the place. Wang Sheng even prepared a comfortable chair for himself so that he could be more comfortable when sharing the inheritance. There were a few seats around for everyone so that they could stick part of their bodies on Wang Sheng. Of course, everyone would definitely put their hands on Wang Sheng, so they needed to be closer. Wang Sheng sat sideways, taking care of 3 people on each side of his chest and back. He held the green ball of inheritance with one hand and stretched out the other to take care of one person. The 6 leaders sat in front of and behind Wang Sheng, each reaching out a hand and putting it on Wang Sheng's body. Wang Sheng stretched out his hand and grabbed the hand of the old Taoist Ling Su. Wang Shengkai waited until everyone was ready and greeted the 6 junior Taoist priests. Then, Wang Shengkai stuck his hand into the translucent barrier as he did at the beginning. This time, Wang Sheng did not just touch it lightly with his fingertips. Instead, his whole palm was completely stuck on the rotating green ball. A huge amount of information suddenly rushed into Wang Sheng's mind. At the same time, this information also rushed through Wang Sheng's body and rushed into the minds of the 7 people who were touching Wang Sheng outside the barrier. The 8 people, including Wang Sheng, trembled at the same time and then stopped moving. The green ball floating in the air also stopped changing and spinning, as if all time had stopped in an instant. In the eyes of the 6 young Taoist priests, it was as if the 8 of them had suddenly frozen in a strange way. Boom! A clear picture flashed in Wang Sheng's mind. From the beginning of Wang Sheng's memory, everything he had experienced, reading, playing, holidays, eating and drinking, joining the army, training, fighting, missions, entering the special forces, becoming an ace sniper. The last mission, the scenes flashed in Wang Sheng's mind like a horse lantern, without missing a single thing. Everything that Wang Sheng had experienced on Earth, the scenes he had seen, the sounds he had heard, the tastes he had tasted, the sensations he had felt, the cold and the heat, the pain and the happiness, everything went through in detail. All the memories were so clear that Wang Sheng could see them clearly, as if he was watching a movie on a giant screen. Then, after coming to this world, everyone he met, every scene he saw, every sound he heard, cultivation, battles, escape, assassination, everything was still so clear. After personal experience, he didn't know where the scenes came from, and he didn't know if they were from Earth or this world. The sun rose and set, the tide rose and fell, the sky, the earth, the sea, the living creatures, the madly growing grasslands, forests, monsters hunting prey, and being hunted by even stronger monsters. It was a complete cycle of life. Although there were life and death in the scenes he saw, Wang Sheng only felt a sense of vitality, and his whole body was abnormally comfortable. The scenes only made Wang Sheng feel that everything was being pushed forward, becoming more and more lively, and not lifeless. Immersed in the changes of heaven and earth, after a long time, Wang Sheng felt his body shake, and then another shake. After 4 or 5 times in a row, Wang Sheng could no longer maintain that passive calmness, and he instantly woke up. The Grand Abbey Dean, the 5 Hierarch, and the old Taoist Ling Su had already taken their hands off Wang Sheng's body. The vibration they felt just now was caused when their hands left Wang Sheng's body. Wang Sheng pulled his hand back without thinking, and the feeling of the inheritance green ball was cut off, and all the scenes in his mind disappeared in an instant. Apart from Wang Sheng, who could still stay awake, the others all looked like they were in meditation, as if they were cultivating. At that moment, Wang Sheng dared not do anything other than remain silent and not make a single sound. He turned his head to look at the inheritance green ball, and, as expected, it had shrunk by half. This also meant that the 6 young Taoists had the opportunity to experience it with Wang Sheng. Perhaps what they saw was different from what Wang Sheng saw, and Wang Sheng did not know what the real inheritance was. But in Wang Sheng's view, everything he saw, apart from his own experience, was only natural change. Was this a reminder from the Taoist patriarch that Taoism follows nature? Obviously, Wang Sheng was not qualified to be the successor of Taoism, so he could not figure out what the inheritance was. But the 6 hierarch and the old Taoist Ling Su must have benefited a lot, and Wang Sheng could even feel the unusually clear changes in their realms. Wang Sheng suddenly felt strange. Why could he feel the changes in their realms so clearly? Wang Sheng did not have such an ability in the past. Was this the reward for acting as a bridge? In the soul space, Wang Sheng looked around, and there seemed to be no change, except that the indescribable 6th sense was a little sharper. There seemed to be no change. No, the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. Wang Sheng just tried it casually, and was surprised to find that the 6-word formula was easy for him. It was as if he had practiced the 5-word formula countless times, and he could use it with just a thought. Not only that, he seemed to be able to judge what effect the combination of the 6 words of the 6-word formula would have before it was used. One had to know that, except for the great Grandmaster's performance, Wang Sheng had not successfully used the 6-word formula anywhere else. Just this time, it was unknown how much hard work Wang Sheng had saved, and Wang Sheng's combat power had increased by several times. The inheritance of the Dao sect's patriarch was indeed extraordinary. He had not deliberately understood the deeper meaning, but he had already gained such benefits by acting as a bridge. He really did not know what great gains the old Taoist and the others would have after they woke up from their meditation. At this time, Wang Sheng did not dare to make a sound and disturb the people who were meditating. He looked at his watch, and it was still the same time as before. Could it be that he had thought of so many things in just a moment? Out of curiosity, Wang Sheng could not help but use hand gestures to ask the 6 young Taoist priests who had been guarding around. From the feedback of the young Taoist priests' hand gestures, Wang Sheng then realized that what he thought was a moment had passed in reality for a whole 5 days and 5 nights. Chapter 1106. Whatever he did, it would take him several days and nights. Even his cultivation was the same. Wang Sheng was rendered speechless by this. Seeing the young Taoist priest's reminder, Wang Sheng discovered that his stomach was already very hungry. It couldn't be helped. It was a normal physiological phenomenon. Even with the protection of spiritual energy, not eating and drinking would not hurt the liver, stomach, and body during cultivation, but now that he was awake, his instinct immediately took over. It had to be said that the young Taoist priests who could be chosen as heirs were basically the kind of people who were smart, talented, and at the same time had a high emotional intelligence. Seeing Wang Sheng's expression, they knew what he was feeling now. A Taoist priest made a gesture to Wang Sheng, indicating that Wang Sheng should go to the passage over there, so as not to disturb the cultivation of the elders. Wang Sheng also followed the advice. In fact, when he saw the young Taoist priest make that gesture to him, Wang Sheng already knew that they had already prepared food over there. After entering the passage and walking a few feet out, sure enough, a pot of Tai Chi health porridge that had just been cooled was brought over by a Taoist priest who had gone in earlier. Wang Sheng silently gave the 2 young Taoist priests a thumbs up, then took the small pot of porridge and slowly drank it. Wang Sheng himself felt that there was not much gain in Taoism, but the 9 words incantation had been upgraded from the 5-word formula to the 6-word formula, which was definitely an unexpected surprise. In particular, the 6th sense had become very sensitive, which made Wang Sheng very surprised. The 6 headmasters and ancestor Ling Su still didn't know how long it would take to comprehend, so everyone was waiting quietly. For the 6 young Taoist priests, there was still half of the green ball. In terms of volume, it may only be 1/8 of the original, but that half of the green ball could also let them comprehend the inheritance left by the ancestors, which was definitely of great benefit to them. Now everyone just had to wait quietly. There was no need to worry. The people who were immersed in comprehension did not let Wang Sheng and the others wait for a long time. After spending another 2 days and 2 nights, the 6 headmasters and old ancestor Ling Su woke up one after another. The straightforward metaphysics sect master was the first to open his eyes, and the old Taoist Ling Su, who had the highest cultivation, was the last to open his eyes. From this, it was possible to see the difference in everyone's cultivation. After waking up, they were busy again. After eating, drinking, and resting for a while, the elders finally settled down. Their bodies were somewhat worn out, which was normal. It would be strange if they didn't eat or drink for 7 days straight. However, they were all very excited. It was obvious that they had benefited a lot from the inheritance of their ancestor. Seeing that there was only half of the green sphere left, everyone seemed a little happy. This meant that their carefully chosen successor would also have the opportunity to receive the inheritance of the ancestral master. After sending someone outside to spread the news, everyone quietly cultivated in the land of inheritance for a few days. The main thing was Wang Sheng, because Wang Sheng still had to take the 6 young Taoist priests to receive the inheritance, so his body must be recuperated. Under the blessing of the Tai Chi health porridge and Wang Sheng's 9 words mantra 6-word formula, Wang Sheng's body recovered very quickly. The 6 young Taoist priests' cultivation was also good. They were worthy of being the carefully selected successors of the Taoist sections. From the beginning to the end, they did not show a trace of anxiety or impatience, which made the several headmasters and old Taoist Ling Su nod repeatedly. Wang Sheng once again sat on the edge of the inheritance formation. The 6 young Taoist priests surrounded Wang Sheng. After bowing to Wang Sheng, they reached out and put their hands on Wang Sheng. Once again, Wang Sheng's hand reached into the barrier and touched the green sphere. This time, the situation did not appear in Wang Sheng's mind. It was no longer Wang Sheng's memory and the changes in the world, but focused on the changes in the soul origin space. Since Wang Sheng began to cultivate after the formation of the soul origin space, every time the soul origin space was formed, every time the soul origin space changed, everything went through Wang Sheng's mind in detail. Even the division and various deductions of the battle consciousness minion were not missed. The various subtle things in the soul origin space were incomparably clear. The places that Wang Sheng had never paid attention to before were also demonstrated to Wang Sheng. Finally, it focused on the shadow of the Yazi form. In other words, the Yazi form could not be regarded as a shadow, but a tiger fang saber that had been magnified many times. The paint on it began to change constantly. Matte black, bright silver gold, army green, desert camouflage, jungle camouflage, snow camouflage. All kinds of paint changes were completed. The 128 battle consciousness minion suddenly condensed into one, turning into a giant human figure. The battle consciousness minion held the tiger fang saber in one hand and began to practice the various killing techniques that Wang Sheng had cultivated in the soul origin space. Military boxing, military killing techniques, Tai Chi sword, origin returning hand, exploding arrow, stealth, and so on. As long as it was something that Wang Sheng knew, he practiced it all. The saber turned into a saber, a sword, a bow, and so on. After the battle consciousness minion finished practicing in the soul origin space, the soul origin space disappeared. In Wang Sheng's mind, starting from the first battle that he had experienced, all the battles that Wang Sheng had participated in the past were extracted. The picture in Wang Sheng's mind was clearly divided into 2 parts. One part was the original memory, the real battle that Wang Sheng had participated in. The other part was the same battle scene, but the process of the battle had changed. In a real battle, how Wang Sheng made his move and how he dealt with the enemy was very clear. But in the other picture, there was a simpler, more efficient, and more labor-saving method. Both sides were demonstrated at the same time, allowing Wang Sheng to instantly understand the gains and losses of the previous battles clearly. All of a sudden, Wang Sheng realized that the few battles he had been so proud of in the past actually had so many loopholes. Furthermore, he was able to complete them even more efficiently. His movements, which could not be any more skillful, were actually able to unleash such great power. Wang Sheng was practically stunned. He made a lot of money. After Wang Sheng carefully went through this before and after comparison in his mind, Wang Sheng's first reaction was that he made a lot of money. Yazi was the one who was the best at fighting among the 9 sons of the dragon. Wang Sheng believed that this was the biggest gift that the inheritance left by the founder of the Taoism sect had given him after stimulating the characteristics of Yazi. It was impossible for the founder of the Taoism sect 1,000 years ago to know what Yazi was, and it was even more impossible for him to know what battles Wang Sheng had experienced. Therefore, this could only be the result of the things in his mind being refined and optimized by the Yazi origin spirit. This also meant that Wang Sheng's Yazi origin spirit must have undergone a great change, and his cultivation must have advanced by leaps and bounds again. There were several vibrations coming from his body. Wang Sheng understood that these were definitely the hands of the 6 young Taoist priests leaving his body. They had completed the process of accepting the inheritance. Opening his eyes, Wang Sheng saw the 6 young Taoist priests who had not woken up yet sitting cross-legged. Further away, the 6 headmasters and the old Taoist Ling Su were looking over with concern. He turned his head, and, as expected, the green spinning ball had completely disappeared without a trace. Chapter 11:07. Wang Sheng stood up, carefully bypassed the 6 young Taoist priests, and walked to the side of old Taoist Ling Su. The old Taoist patted Wang Sheng, then gestured to the 6 sect masters. The 6 sect masters nodded in unison, and then the old Taoist pulled Wang Sheng directly into the passageway. He thought they would eat something there, but the old Taoist pulled him all the way into the water, and they walked out along the underwater passageway. They hoisted them up through the windlass and walked out of the run-down Taoist temple through the passageway. "How many days has it been this time?" Wang Sheng asked when they were out of the Taoist temple and rushing in the direction of the Laojun temple. 3 days and 3 nights, the old Taoist Ling Su replied snappily. Judging from the old Taoist tone, he seemed to be in a bad mood. "Old Taoist, why are you angry?" Wang Sheng asked with a face full of doubt. Could it be that something else happened outside when he was acting as a bridge for the 6 young Taoist priests? Patriarch's inheritance is a great opportunity, but you didn't think about comprehending our Taoist techniques and instead pondered about cultivation. This was what made the old Taoist unhappy, and he scolded Wang Sheng. What a waste of God's gifts. What a waste of God's gifts. Old Taoist, you can see what I was thinking when I accepted the inheritance? Wang Sheng was very surprised. How did the old Taoist know that he was cultivating? When others accept the inheritance, they sit calmly, but you're the only one whose hair is about to explode. What are you doing if not cultivating? The old Taoist was very unhappy, and he scolded Wang Sheng again. You're not even comparable to a few children. You entered a treasure mountain and came back empty-handed. I've never seen someone as stupid as you. Even worse than a child. Clearly, he was saying that Wang Sheng was inferior to those 6 young Taoist priests. However, Wang Sheng had no intention of arguing with the old Taoist. His mind had never been on the legacy of Taoism to begin with. He had no intention of leaving the world to cultivate. He was already very satisfied with the opportunity to experience the legacy of Taoism. Not to mention, he had also gained 2 great rewards. If he was still not satisfied, he would really be an insatiable person. In the eyes of the old Taoist, the inheritance of Taoist techniques was definitely more important than cultivation. This was understandable. Although the old Taoist seemed to be rebellious, in fact, he only seemed to be unrestrained because he had broken through that realm. Deep down, the old Taoist was still a virtuous person. After scolding Wang Sheng a few times, The old Taoist also knew Wang Sheng's true intentions, so he did not continue to scold him. Instead, he asked about his gains. 6 words formula. Wang Sheng's simple words made the old Taoist Ling Su's eyes light up. Even if Wang Sheng cultivated, he also chose the Taoist technique of 9 words, which made the old Taoist very satisfied. In particular, Wang Sheng used the Taoist inheritance formation to cultivate his 9 words formula to the level of 6 words formula, which made the old Taoist even more surprised. Try it. The old Taoist could not wait to let Wang Sheng show it to him. Of course, Wang Sheng would not reject the old Taoist's interest. On the way back to the Laojun Temple, Wang Sheng demonstrated the 6 words formula of the army formula to old Taoist Ling Su to maintain and protect his body. At the same time, it also let the old Taoist Ling Su feel the strong recovery effect of his body. Try the confrontation formula. Feeling the unprecedented effect of the 9 words formula, the old Taoist could not wait to let Wang Sheng demonstrate the calming effect of the confrontation formula. Without saying anything, Wang Sheng immediately performed the confrontation formula on himself and the old Taoist. The old Taoist's eyes became brighter and brighter, almost turning into 2 small lanterns. "All right." After feeling it, the old Taoist said happily, "Go back and find a day to marry Mei. At least before Mei reaches the peak of the legendary realm, you don't have to worry about anything. As long as Mei's mind is still on you and on business, you don't have to worry about anything happening to her in a short period of time. What about your void meditation technique?" Wang Sheng was also overjoyed, but he still did not forget to ask the old Taoist about the Taoist sect's void meditation technique. "After accepting the Taoist heritage this time, I already have a direction, but I still need some time to prepare. When the time comes, I should be able to take it out after a closed-door training." The old Taoist was very happy. Not only Wang Sheng's advancement, but he also had a direction for the void meditation technique. When he came out of closed-door training, it would be another Taoist secret art comparable to Taiji Fist. Moreover, it was born from the old Taoist himself. How could the old Taoist not be happy? What do you need to prepare? What kind of arrangements do you need? Wang Sheng was also overjoyed. At least he didn't have to worry about Mei for a long time. His mood immediately became much better. "Tell me, what do you want, and what kind of environment? I'll arrange it for you." People were in high spirits when they encountered happy events. Their cultivation had improved, the old Taoist had good news, and they didn't have to worry for the time being. Wang Sheng immediately showed his rich and imposing character. He even forgot that he hadn't eaten or drunk for 3 days and 3 nights, and was hungry and thirsty. Even if the old Taoist asked him to build a sutra depository for him with gold coins, Wang Sheng would do it without hesitation. Wasn't it just some gold coins? As long as he could solve Mei problem, what was that? You don't need to prepare anything. The old Taoist Ling Su smiled and said calmly, "When the Grand Abbey Dean and the others are ready, I'll go out and kill some people. After that, I'll be almost ready." "That can't be." Wang Sheng was shocked and asked loudly, "You want to study the voidness and maintaining tranquility mantra, and your preparation is to go out and kill people. Are you going to achieve voidness and maintaining tranquility, or are you going to bathe the world in blood? Can you maintain tranquility and maintaining tranquility by killing people?" "Of course, I can't maintain tranquility when killing people." The old Taoist had a matter-of-fact look on his face as he slowly said, "However, I've killed almost all of them, and the ruthlessness in my chest has been vented. Naturally, I'll be able to keep quiet." Wang Sheng was stunned. Was there such an explanation? He couldn't help but smile bitterly at the old Taoist. "Old Taoist, you're a man of great virtue and Taoism. If you say that, people will think you're a homicidal maniac." T. The old Taoist Ling Su scolded him with a classic catchphrase, and then he scolded Wang Sheng. "You're the inventor of Taiji Fist. Don't you understand that in this world, there's yin and yang, one positive and one negative? If there's only tranquility and no action, how can there be Taiji? When you've killed enough people and vented enough violence, you'll naturally be able to calm your heart. Isn't this a typical example of extreme yang giving birth to yin and extreme yin giving birth to yang? You said that you're carrying yin and embracing yang. Was that a joke? This time, Wang Sheng was completely speechless because Wang Sheng found that he couldn't refute the old Taoist Ling Su's words for a while. When have you ever seen someone trying hard to calm their heart down and suppress all the evil fire in their body to be able to truly calm their heart? The old Taoist words reached Wang Sheng's ears as if he had been enlightened. It made Wang Sheng's heart churn. The consequence of suppressing it with all your strength is that one day, when you can't suppress it anymore, it'll suddenly erupt on a larger scale. It'll be many times more powerful than when you vent it normally. Is that what you want? Instead of blocking it, it's better to vent it. Wang Sheng said subconsciously. Chapter 1108. That's right. The old Taoist was stunned. He then nodded heavily and praised him with satisfaction. Don't you understand it very well? Why are you still being stubborn? Could it be that you've killed so many people that you've become timid? After saying this, the old Taoist was stunned again. I thought you already understood this principle. The last time you asked me to practice the royal meditation technique. Before the old Taoist finished speaking, Wang Sheng had already guessed what the old Taoist was going to say. The second stage of the royal meditation technique is to be practiced this way. The old Taoist nodded. This was his negligence. He thought that Wang Sheng, the founder of Tai Chi Fist, would understand this principle, right? In the end, Wang Sheng did not think in this direction at all. This made the old Taoist completely speechless. No wonder you said that killing is also a form of cultivation. Wang Sheng was completely convinced. I see. The principle was quite simple and easy to understand. However, Wang Sheng actually did not apply the real yin-yang Tai Chi principle to his cultivation. As expected, his cultivation was not high enough, and his realm was not high enough. By the way, if Mei were to practice our Tao Sex Void meditation technique, would it be a similar method? Wang Sheng thought of Mei and hurriedly asked. That's right. The old Taoist nodded without hesitation. So, when Mei is by your side, you should take advantage of the fact that your 9 symbolic words cultivation has greatly improved. Let Mei display her ultimate charm on you, which is inconvenient for others. After a part of it is channeled, it will be easier to control in the future. When that time comes, it will be much easier to practice the void meditation technique. A pleasant surprise. In the beginning, Wang Sheng's plan was simple. He would improve his cultivation, and the old Taoist would improve the Tao Sex Heart Sutra to observe emptiness and observe tranquility, and Mei would cultivate it. In the end, everyone would be happy, and he and Mei would be together. Only now did he realize that it wasn't as simple as it seemed. However, he had been walking on the right path by accident. Count me in for the murder. The Laojun Temple was definitely going to go on a killing spree this time. Not only the Laojun Temple, but the entire Tao sect was probably going to stand out to establish their dominance. How could Wang Sheng be willing to fall behind in such a matter? When it came to killing, who could be more professional than Wang Sheng? Sure, the old Taoist casually agreed. Anyway, the old Taoist target was definitely Shanhua Land and the mastermind behind it. Wang Sheng definitely had a grudge against these people. Even if he didn't let Wang Sheng join in, Wang Sheng would take the initiative to kill them. They chatted as they walked. It took them 4 hours to stroll back to the Laojun Temple. Wang Sheng ate and drank to his heart's content, then slept soundly. 3 days later, Wang Sheng waited for the 6 sect masters and 6 young Taoist priests at the Laojun Temple. The 6 sect masters were fine when they saw Wang Sheng. The 6 young Taoist priests bowed to Wang Sheng solemnly again. Wang Sheng accepted the bow with a clear conscience. Shanhua Land is indeed backed by the Dai country. This time, the search for the land of inheritance, coupled with the unforeseen events along the way, took up more than a month and a half to receive the inheritance. During such a long time, many things have been investigated. When the Grand Abbey Dean came back, he got the news soon. During the Martial Grandmaster concert, Wang Sheng had smelled the aura of surpassing mountain land on the Dai family's experts who had rushed over. After this was leaked to the Xia family, Qiu family, and Tang family, the three families had increased their vigilance. At the same time, they had secretly sent out experts to keep a close eye on the Xia family's group. The Dai family might not have thought that the matter had been exposed, but who would have thought that someone could smell that scent? Even though they knew that Wang Sheng's senses had been enhanced, they didn't think that Wang Sheng's sense of smell could be that strong. Wang Sheng could smell the scent of demonic beasts in advance. But how could the strong scent of demonic beasts be compared with the scent of Shangyuan land, which even their experts couldn't smell? Therefore, when all the parties were investigating, the Xia family claimed that they were the victims of the Shi family's attack on the way to the capital. They kept fighting with the Shi family and successfully attracted a lot of attention. After the experts of the Dai family came to the capital and consolidated their cultivation for a while, they thought that everyone's attention was attracted by the conflict between the Shi family and the Dai family. Otherwise, the three families would think of ways to attack Shangyuan land. So they left the capital boldly and entered the land of thousand devastations. However, they didn't expect to be followed by several peerless experts. After passing through the land of thousand devastations, some experts of the Dai family rode on flying demonic beasts to Shangyuan land in a remote valley bordering the land of thousand devastations. Due to the failure of the plan to attack Taoism school, they lost 10 flying demonic beasts and dozens of peerless experts. The pressure on Shangyuan land increased greatly, and they urgently needed expert support. The experts of the Dai family who left on flying demonic beasts didn't realize that their whereabouts had been seen clearly by the experts of the three families who were following them. The three families didn't even need to verify anything. Just by seeing the flying demonic beasts, they were sure that the Dai family had something to do with Shangyuan land. Even if it wasn't a conspiracy of the Dai family, they were definitely jackals of the same lair. The experts of the three families didn't say anything. They made a mutual agreement and reported the information to their families. Of course, they didn't forget to send a copy of the information to Duke Changxing's mansion. After all, the source of the information was Duke Changxing's mansion. After receiving the information, Mayor didn't dare to delay and immediately sent it to Laojun Taoist Temple. Then, Laojun Taoist Temple also knew about it. In that case, I, the old Taoist, will go to the capital of Dai Nation in person. Old Taoist Ling Su said slowly and calmly after listening to Grand Abbey Dean's introduction of the situation. Bring a batch of disciples of the Qing generation. Grand Abbey Dean didn't stop him. He directly added some helpers to Old Taoist Ling Su. From the day Shangyuan land attacked Taoism school, it was destined that such a thing would happen. Not to mention that Grand Abbey Dean was already mentally prepared. Even the other 5 sect leaders had started to prepare the experts of their sect for this day. Hearing that Grand Abbey Dean was going to send a batch of disciples of the Qing generation, the 5 sect leaders expressed that the experts of their sects were also willing to participate. There's no need for that. I, the old Taoist, will go alone. Everyone was very enthusiastic. However, the old Taoist rejected their suggestions with one sentence. We're just teaching them a lesson that their descendants will remember. We're not going to destroy the nation. We don't need so many people. Taoism school can't let the other feudal vassals think that we have the ability to destroy the Dai nation easily. Otherwise, both the feudal vassals and Taoism school will have trouble sleeping and eating in the future. Back then, the Lin family was destroyed because of this. Everyone was silent for a moment before nodding their heads. The elder ancestors' words made sense. The Lin family was destroyed because they were too aggressive. Taoism school couldn't follow the same path as the Lin family. I'll go back and prepare a batch of things. Wang Sheng interrupted. Senior brother, remember to pick them up from my place when you leave. I can't wait to see the Dai Nation's palace turn into ruins. Chapter 1109. What Wang Sheng was going to prepare was, of course, military explosives. Moreover, what Wang Sheng was going to prepare was not just 1 or 2 bags of explosives. Many people in the capital had noticed that Duke Changxing had returned to his mansion. Then, Duke Changxing's mansion began to purchase wantonly. All kinds of living materials, all kinds of unknown things. The quantity started from the base of 3,000 caddies, and the more powerful ones even exceeded tens of thousands of caddies. Everyone knew that there had always been a group of great masters from Linglong Pavilion living in Duke Chongqing's mansion. Every time Wang Sheng mobilized a large number of people, it basically meant that a new batch of things was going to appear. Now that Duke Chongqing's mansion was buying so wantonly, everyone was curious. What was Wang Sheng going to do? When Wang Sheng came back, the happiest people in the mansion were definitely Mei Er and Rosa. Wang Sheng went to the Laojun Temple for more than a month, which made the two women a little worried. Fortunately, Wang Sheng came back in time, which made the two women relieved and made the women in the Grand View Garden completely relieved. I have good news for you. When they met for the first time after coming back, Wang Sheng and they almost said this sentence at the same time. After saying that, both of them could not help but feel happy for their synchronized tacit understanding with each other. You first. This time, Wang Sheng did not hesitate to pull Mei Er to sit in his arms, put his arms around Mei Er's delicate body, and let Mei Er speak first. Rosa had been following Mei Er like a follower. Seeing this scene, her eyes lit up, and she seemed to have guessed something. She turned her eyes, turned around, and went out. After a while, she came back with some wine and dishes, so that Mei Er and Wang Sheng could chat more easily. The Gan family's compensation was sent the day before yesterday. Mei Er's expression was one of praise and praise. Wang Sheng instantly understood that it was definitely going to be a hefty sum. How much did they pay? Of course, Wang Sheng had to satisfy Mei Er's desire to show off, so he asked with interest. Take a guess. Mei Er smiled from ear to ear and leaned against Wang Sheng's chest, refusing to say anything. 100 million gold coins? Wang Sheng casually said a number. As he spoke, he smelled the pleasant scent on Mei Er's body. This was not the smell of cosmetics or perfume, but Mei Er's natural body fragrance, which was better than any perfume. Guess again. Mei Er was very happy that Wang Sheng liked the smell of her body. She reached out and wrapped her arms around Wang Sheng's neck. She almost hugged Wang Sheng tightly. 200 million. Wang Sheng didn't stand on ceremony and directly raised the price by one-fold. No. Mei Er continued to shake her head. When she shook her little head, her hair tickled Wang Sheng's neck. Then I can't guess it. Wang Sheng also felt that 200 million gold coins was about right. Anyway, he had to pay for it first and slowly deal with it in the future. But if even this wasn't right, then Wang Sheng couldn't guess it. With Mei Er's strength and charm at the negotiation table, the person in charge of the Gan family's negotiation would probably vomit blood. Rosa, say it. Mei Er wanted to stay in Wang Sheng's arms for a while longer, so she directly let Rosa speak. The two elders of the Gan family who were in charge of this matter have been executed. Rosa didn't refuse. She smiled and said, the head of the Gan family and the first elder wrote a letter to explain that they didn't know about this at all. Their current focus was on sorting out the scrolls. I believe that you will understand. The Gan family and the Shi family had brought back much more scrolls than Wang Sheng. Moreover, they didn't have a master like old Taoist Ling Su, who could casually distinguish the level of the scrolls. Even if they were to sort out the scrolls, it would probably take a long time and a group of masters would be tied down. Wang Sheng believed that the head of the Gan family and the first elder were focused on this batch of scrolls. But it will be a joke to say that they didn't know about the attack on him and old Taoist Ling Su. 45 legendary masters, more than 20 of which were at the peak of the legendary level. How could an ordinary elder mobilize them? Even if the two elders joined forces, they wouldn't be able to hide it from them. But since they were willing to find this excuse, and Wang Sheng didn't want to do anything to them for the time being, then this must be the reason. Anyway, they had used the lives of the two elders to make up for it. As for whether the two elders were eliminated or killed for this reason, it had nothing to do with Wang Sheng. Then let's understand for the time being. Wang Sheng smiled and asked Rosa, what else? Each of us paid 10 million gold coins. Rosa replied with a smile. No way, Wang Sheng exclaimed. Then we only paid 20 million gold coins for the two of us. After exclaiming, Wang Sheng felt that something was wrong. If this was the result of Mei Er's intervention, it would be too damaging to Mei Er's reputation. Moreover, Mei Er was beaming with joy. She didn't look like she had failed the negotiation at all. Looking at Mei Er, who was smiling like a little vixen, and Rosa, who was also smiling mysteriously, Wang Sheng's heart skipped a beat. Don't tell me they have to pay 10 million gold coins for each of them. Wang Sheng exclaimed again. Yes, Rosa said matter-of-factly, but the expression on her face was unusually clear as she tried to hold back her laughter. You too. Wang Sheng looked as if he had been defeated by the two of them, which made the two ladies cover their mouths and laugh hysterically. 10 million gold coins for each of them. The Gan clan had sent 45 people, and 45 of them had died. In other words, the Gan clan had to pay 450 million gold coins. Mei was really ruthless. Not only did the Gan clan's dead people have no way to redress their grievances, but the living people had to fork out gold coins as compensation. It was simply double torture. That's good. The Gan clan got a lot of gold, so it's only right for them to pay a part of it. It was a small surprise. Wang Sheng was naturally very satisfied. Give half of it to the old Taoists some other day. Mei immediately agreed sweetly. She and Rosa both knew that with the old Taoist by Wang Sheng's side, Wang Sheng would be safe and sound. Not to mention giving half of it to the old Taoist. Even if they gave all of it to the old Taoist, they definitely wouldn't reject it. Instead, they would be worried that the old Taoist would reject it. By the way, Duke, what's the good news you mentioned? Mei couldn't help but ask when she remembered that Wang Sheng also said that he had good news. The old Taoist said that he found a way. Wang Sheng didn't hide it and directly told Mei the news so that she wouldn't have to worry about it. After he goes out to cultivate for a few days, he will go back to cultivate in seclusion. He should be able to find a way then. Really? Mei instantly forgot everything else and sat up straight in Wang Sheng's arms. She looked at Wang Sheng, and even her voice was filled with surprise. Of course, Wang Sheng loved to see Mei Er's happy expression the most. He smiled and continued. In addition, my cultivation has improved a little recently. The old Taoist said that I don't have to worry about you affecting me anymore. Show me your most beautiful side. Chapter 11:10. Mei was suddenly enveloped by a great sense of happiness. She only felt that her whole body was light, and she didn't know where she was. Finally, Wang Sheng's words made her wake up instantly. The old Taoist is going to take revenge. Wang Sheng told Rosa, I want to make a batch of good stuff for the old Taoist. Help me buy them according to this list. Wang Sheng made a list of all the materials needed to make black gunpowder. There were the basics of sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter, as well as some additives to increase the power. Wang Sheng didn't need to hide anything from Rosa and Mei. He only asked Rosa to buy according to the quantity of 500 caddies. Even if it was 500 caddies of each, after mixing, the total amount would be more than 5 tons, including the flammable substances and metal powder. The power of the military black gunpowder was 2/3 of TNT, but could also exert the explosive power of a ton of TNT. It was enough to be used in the Dai Kingdom's palace. However, when Mei heard that this was made for the old Taoist Ling Su to help the old Taoist, she didn't say anything and directly multiplied the quantity by 10. Naturally, the two women added a lot of messy things to the list. There were things for Dream Workshop, Qian Shingyuan, Yiyun, Runzi Workshop, and the daily necessities of the residents. A purchase list that was dozens of times more than Wang Sheng's list was produced. No one could tell what Wang Sheng was going to do with these things from this list. Instead, it made the people who were paying attention to Changsheng Gong Fu look forward to it. What good stuff was going to come out? The biggest seller of saltpeter and sulfur was actually the Taoist sect. They sold most of it from the Laojun Temple and bought enough from other places. Charcoal was the most common, and every noble family would use it. No matter how big the demand was, it wouldn't be suspicious. However, Mei didn't care and multiplied the quantity by 10 times, which made Wang Sheng speechless. The configuration of gunpowder, other than Wang Sheng, who else could it be? It increased Wang Sheng's workload tenfold out of thin air. There was a special courtyard for Wang Sheng to take care of these things. Fortunately, the weather during this period of time was very sunny, and there was no rain. This also reduced the difficulty for Wang Sheng by a lot. Mayer directly bought 20,000 caddies of high-quality charcoal, 10 tons. Wang Sheng only wanted 1,000 caddies, but Mayer increased it by 10 times. Together with the expenses of Changsheng Duke Mansion, they directly bought 10 tons. 10 tons of refined charcoal were spread out in the courtyard. 20 square meters of space was spread out, and the charcoal was 1 meter thick. If Wang Sheng were to use a mortar to slowly pound the powder into the powder needed for the black gunpowder, how long would that take? Even if Wang Sheng's mortar was bigger and could only get a few kilograms at a time, it would still take a few thousand times to process the charcoal. And this was only the charcoal, not counting the sulfur and saltpeter. It had to be processed the same way. Although the two materials were only 10,000 caddies each, whether it was the charcoal or the sulfur and saltpeter, they all needed to be purified by Wang Sheng before grinding. It was not a little troublesome. However, Wang Sheng didn't want anyone except Mayer and Rosa to know this formula, so he could only do it himself. Fortunately, he had done similar work before, and his proficiency was not bad, but it still needed time. When grinding, an idea came to Wang Sheng's mind. He had never thought of using the Buddhist incantation of 9 words to do these things before, but Wang Sheng thought of a way to replace manual work, so he couldn't help but use it on a large pile of charcoal. The forwarding formula increased Wang Sheng's control of spiritual energy. With the help of the fighting formula, the army formula, the swordsman formula, the all formula, and the formation formula, he directly used it on the pile of charcoal. The spiritual energy emitted by Wang Sheng's Buddhist incantation of 9 words acted directly on the large pile of refined charcoal, instantly shattering the charcoal into pieces. This was a revelation that Wang Sheng got from the stone walls and the formation shattered by the statue of the Lao-Tzu in the land of inheritance of Taoism. Not only did it contain the principle of resonance, but it also contained the subtle use of spiritual energy. Not only could it shatter the charcoal, but it could also accurately control the strength so that the charcoal powder would not fly everywhere. He didn't expect there to be such a good way to cultivate and do things at the same time. Sure enough, there was knowledge everywhere. As Wang Sheng sighed, he sat on the spot and began to use the 6 words formula on the pile of charcoal. He could only shatter into pieces at one time, but not into powder. This required many precise uses. Wang Sheng treated it as his own cultivation. He didn't get tired of it and used it again and again. Looking at the 10 tons of charcoal, in less than a morning, turned into charcoal powder that was comparable to the fine powder that Wang Sheng grinded with great effort, Wang Sheng felt a little satisfied. Since there was such a method, why not make it a little more detailed? Anyway, the finer the black gunpowder powder, the better the effect. There was no harm in making it finer. Wang Sheng used a full 2 days to process the charcoal. It was a level finer than the one that Wang Sheng ground with a mortar before. However, when Wang Sheng shattered the charcoal, he suddenly discovered another phenomenon. During the constant uniform vibration in the charcoal powder, the parts of the same particle size and density would be separated. Some of the heavier parts would sink, while the lighter parts would rise. After discovering this phenomenon, Wang Sheng instantly realized that the purity of the carbon powder could be very high. Since the density and particle size were the same, the impurities would have different densities. After a few days of shaking and separating, the impurities that floated up were removed, leaving behind the bottom part that sank. The middle part could be said to be extremely high purity carbon powder. Afterwards, the sulfur and saltpeter were also processed in the same way. Wang Sheng also obtained high-purity sulfur and saltpeter powder. The addition of phosphorus powder was done in the same way. Wang Sheng estimated that the power of the black gunpowder he produced this time could be increased by at least 20%. Even when mixing the powder, Wang Sheng used the 6 words formula of the 9 words formula. As long as the vibration was not uniform, the powder would be shaken very evenly by the uneven vibration. It was much better than manual mixing. In the end, there were at least a dozen tons of black gunpowder. After Wang Sheng processed them separately, they were wrapped into explosive bags and placed in dozens of storage rings. It took 10 days for Wang Sheng to completely process these explosive bags. But this time, the speed was enough to make Wang Sheng pleasantly surprised. If it was in the past, it would take at least 1 or 2 months, and it would be impossible to do it with such precision and uniformity. What was the power of a dozen tons of black gunpowder exploding at the same time? When the chemical warehouse in Tianjin exploded on Earth, the power was equivalent to 21 tons of TNT. How big of an area did it affect? Wang Sheng didn't want to kill innocent people. With so many explosive bags, he certainly couldn't give them all to the old Taoist. Forget it, since he told the old Taoist that he would also go, then let's go together. Chapter 11:11. Everyone knew that the Dao sects would retaliate, but they didn't know how they would do it. Up until now, it had been a month since the Shan-Yue experts colluded with the Dao sects traders to attack the Dao sects, but the Dao sects still hadn't taken any action. Everyone was guessing what the Dao sects were waiting for. Over the next few days, everyone suddenly understood what the Dao sects were waiting for. Xia, Qiu, and Tang all revealed at the same time that the Shan-Yue state had the support of the Dai state. A few famous experts of the Dai state returned to the border of the Dai state after participating in the concert in the capital, then rode their flying mounts and headed straight for the Shan-Yue land. No one would believe them if they just said it. However, the 3 states had a tacit understanding this time. When those experts arrived at the Shan-Yue land, the experts of the 3 states, who had been hiding for some time without being discovered by the barbarians, attacked a barbarian tribe at the same time. The entire tribe was massacred. Not only were the experts of the Dai state captured, but several of Baoqing Yutang's people were also captured. Among the people who were captured and killed, apart from a few experts from the Dai family, there were also experts from the Dai family who were claimed to have been killed by the Shan-Yue kingdom when Wang Sheng and old Taoist Qi entered the Shan-Yue land. This could be considered direct evidence. What the Dai clan couldn't deny was that the experts of the 3 states weren't the only ones chasing after the experts of the Dai clan. They had also invited the experts of the Song state, the Feng state, the Shi state, and the Gan state. Even the imperial family had sent a consecrator along. Everyone saw the experts of the Dai clan riding on flying mounts. Basically, the 8 vassal states and the imperial family, apart from the Dai clan, were all accusing the Dai clan. What else could the Dai clan say? Basically, this was the truth. The state of Qiu and the state of Song were on the east and west sides of the Dai clan. The entire Dai clan was immediately on guard. Fortunately, the Dai clan was one of the 8 vassal states. If it was a small state like Triumph Return, it would have long been divided among the 3 states. Even so, the Dai clan still acted as if they were facing a great enemy. If the other vassal states and the imperial family disregarded everything and acted, it was only a matter of time before the Dai clan was destroyed. After discovering that the advantage of the Shan-Yue land was no longer there, the barbarian experts of the Shan-Yue kingdom quickly gathered together and concentrated all their strength to attack the Xia kingdom. Originally, the Shan-Yue country had already occupied the southernmost Ningyue city of China. They had obtained a large amount of supplies and could be considered to have gained a foothold outside of the Shan-Yue country. Now, the Shan-Yue kingdom was waging war against the Xia kingdom like a madman. Using Ningyue city as a springboard, they took down 3 cities in a short period of time and had already connected with Ningyue city. The Shanyu kingdom had moved many barbarians from the land of Shanyu to the 4 cities, stabilizing the situation very quickly. In order to guard against the flying mounts of the Shanyu state, the 3 kingdoms didn't dare to send a large number of experts to the Shanyu state. Now that the Dai state was involved, they were even more cautious. Even if the other countries wanted to take this opportunity to unite against the Dai clan and the Shan-Yue kingdom, no one dared to go all out when they couldn't deal with the flying demonic beasts. Although they knew that the Shanyu kingdom's crazy attack on the Xia kingdom was to attract everyone's attention, they still had to pay attention to it. In particular, the Qiu clan and the Tang clan had to be careful of the threat of the flying mounts. The desperate attack of the Shanyu kingdom gave the Dai clan a chance to breathe. The Dai clan quickly sent representatives to fly to various countries to lobby. After all, the Dai clan was one of the 8 major vassal states and had a deep foundation. No one knew what other trump cards the Dai clan had. If the Dai clan was really forced to do something desperate, they might really have to pay the price of bringing a few countries down with them. They were all vassal states of this level. Which one of them didn't have a few national treasures? Just as the Dai clan was lobbying everywhere to ease the hatred between the various parties, the Laojun Temple publicly issued an ultimatum to the Dai clan, demanding an explanation for the attack on the Dao sect's leader. It's here. The various parties have been waiting for the natural law sect's response for a long time. Now that the Laojun Temple suddenly announced it, everyone had a feeling that a storm was brewing. The family head and elders of the Dai clan have been under a lot of pressure recently. They've been patching up holes and making excuses everywhere. Before they had a chance to breathe, the Laojun Temple had given them such an ultimatum. The senior members of the Dai clan were instantly dumbfounded. They had been really busy recently. How could they have the time to think about the Dao sect, which had been attacked and schemed against once? The Dao sect hadn't shown their strength for many years. Apart from the fact that their words were useful in their own territory, none of the major families had ever been respectful to the Dao sect. Because of the chaos, they had neglected the Dao sect. This was indeed the Dai clan's fault. However, the Dai clan also felt wronged. It was the traitor of the Dao sect who had colluded with them many years ago. Not only did they plot the land of Shanyue, but it was also the traitor's suggestion to scheme against the Dao sect's leader. Everyone had discussed it together. How could they blame the Dai clan alone? However, it was not unreasonable for the Dao sect to look for them. After all, it was an expert of Shanyue who had attacked them with a flying demon beast. It was definitely related to the Dai clan. Moreover, the traitor of the Dao sect had been arrested and executed. It was not a problem to look for the Dai clan's accomplices. Explain to the Dao sect? How could they explain it? Now that they were besieged on all sides, they could only send a slightly influential person to the Laojun Temple to express their goodwill. Because there were too many countries to contact, the Dai clan could only send an ordinary elder to the Laojun Temple. The Dai clan's intention was to put up with the Dao sect perfunctorily first. When they were free, they would deal with it slowly. Anyway, the Dao sect was not as threatening as other forces. Their priority was definitely lower. But for the Laojun Temple, this was simply an insult, even though the Dai clan really couldn't send out anyone of importance at this moment. Even the specific compensation couldn't be discussed. The so-called explanation was just a verbal pretense. What the Dai clan did not know was that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had left the capital city together and entered the land of 1,000 devastations. No one dared to follow them. No one knew what the two of them were doing in the land of 1,000 devastations. The people of the Laojun Temple, the Dao sect's leaders, Meier and Rosa knew their target. Everyone was waiting slowly for the moment when the old Taoist and Wang Sheng would strike. The Dai clan was destined to pay a heavy price for their previous actions. They did not know what kind of terrifying attack they would face this time. If they knew the terrifying consequences in advance, they believed that the Dai clan would not have made such a rash decision. They would definitely take it seriously, and their attitude would be incomparably upright. Unfortunately, it was hard to buy something with money. By the time they knew the consequences, it was already too late to turn back. Chapter 11:12. It was conceivable that Dai's capital must be heavily guarded now. There were many experts, and even a mosquito might not be able to fly in. It was not a good sign to be coveted by the other 7 countries and the royal family at the same time. The higher-ups were so anxious that their hair was about to turn white. The snake was like a cup bow, and the wind was like a howling crane. The entire capital had nearly tripled the number of people in fear that someone would sneak in. Fortunately, only Shanyue country had control of flying monsters. Even if other countries had them, there were only 3 of them, which was not much of a threat. In any case, there was no need to worry about being ambushed from the sky in the capital. As long as the surroundings were guarded, they could know in advance whether the enemy would attack, and everyone could sleep in peace. However, the Dai clan's wishful thinking had obviously gone awry. In this world, the Dai family was not the only ones who had flying mounts. Of course, strictly speaking, it was definitely not wrong to look at whether it was a mount or not. However, this did not mean that flying mounts could not be friends with flying monsters. Apart from Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su, no one could imagine that the two of them really had a powerful flying monster as a friend. Heavy Snow in the inner circle of the land of 1,000 extremities. When he was using the 5 words formula, Wang Sheng could not control Heavy Snow, but he could become friends with Heavy Snow. Now that Wang Sheng had reached the realm of the 6 words formula, he still could not control Heavy Snow. However, he could make Heavy Snow understand his intentions, and he could plead with Heavy Snow to fly according to his request. Heavy Snow was very happy to see Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su again. They were good friends who were willing to play with him and had the ability to do so. After playing another high-altitude, skydiving excitedly, Wang Sheng used the 6 words formula to express his intentions to Heavy Snow. Heavy Snow did not hesitate at all. He flapped his huge wings and flew straight in the direction of Daigua. With Wang Sheng, a veteran sniper who was proficient in scouting, positioning, and guidance, there was no need to worry about flying in the wrong direction. The Heavy Snow only took a day to fly thousands of miles from the inner zone of the grounds of Thousand Despair to the capital of the Dai Nation. No matter how high the flying mounts of the mountain range could fly, they could only fly at an altitude of about 5,000 to 6,000 meters. However, the Heavy Snow was directly passed from an altitude of 30,000 meters. Not to mention the fact that the human eye could not see that altitude. Even if one were to sit on the back of a flying demonic beast, it would be impossible to discover that there were people tens of thousands of meters above their heads. By the time Wang Sheng and the old Taoist arrived at the capital of Dai Nation on Heavy Snow, it was already evening, and the sky was about to turn dark. However, the royal palace in the capital of Dai Nation was still brightly lit. At this moment, the king and grand elder of the Dai Kingdom were all sitting in the royal palace, waiting for the feedback from all sides at all times before making a decision after gathering. During this period of time, the higher-ups of the Dai Nation could be said to be in a terrible fix. The reason why those top exponents were exposed had been found out from other sources, but no one had expected that it was actually a mistake due to the smell of those top exponents who were hurriedly transferred over from the mountain range. This was simply a calamity which had descended from the heavens. Who knew that Wang Sheng's nose was that sensitive? Who knew that those top exponents had hurriedly rushed over without even taking a thorough bath? Who knew that the top exponents, who were originally arranged to listen to the concert, would meet with an accident in Sure Country? One accident after another caused Dai Nation's men to be exposed. This series of chain reactions, who would know that it was just Wang Sheng's sudden urge after the 3 great reverends had just broken through to the 10th stage realm, making them harass the various parties? Everything seemed to be decided by the heavens. The Mountain Range Kingdom was indeed plotted by the Dai family behind the scenes, but it wasn't just plotted for a few years, but for over 100 years. Because of this, just the number of top exponents from the Dai family who died in the Mountain Range Kingdom was no less than a few hundred. Finally, after they had secretly reached an agreement with Baoqin Yutang, they used 10 over years' time, from the material to the spiritual, slowly eroding bit by bit before they managed to control the Mountain Range Kingdom in their hands. Although it was said to be control, in actual fact, it was cooperation. Who asked that Dao Sect's sect Master Tong Xian to promote Zhu Xingxing as a god envoy, so those barbarian experts only listened to the god envoy's words. Luckily, Zhu Xingxing was more obedient, and when he asked him to attack Xia country with all his might, he attacked Xia country without giving any discount at all. If it wasn't for Zhu Xingxing's side to share the pressure, the Dai Nation would definitely be besieged from all directions by now. Just because of this, Dai Nation's monarch and grand elder didn't dare to delay, deeply afraid that any side's information would lead to an irreversible consequence. As a matter of fact, even when the sky had turned dark, the both of them didn't dare to relax. as they had been waiting in the palace for the various news, so that they could deal with it at any time. The sky had turned completely dark, and the Grand Elder and the Patriarch raised their heads from the pile of important and unimportant news from various places. Both of them were exhausted. After being busy for a few days, they didn't even have regular meals. At this time, the Grand Elder's stomach rumbled, and the both of them remembered that they had only eaten breakfast today. They didn't even have time to eat lunch today, and it was already dark. Grand Elder, eat something. The Dai clan's patriarch let out a long sigh and called out to the Grand Elder. All right. The Grand Elder stood up and didn't stand on ceremony with the patriarch. At this time, there was no need to stand on ceremony, as it wasn't the time to pay attention to the complicated etiquette. As long as we can endure this period of time, when Xiao Xiao's source spirit breaks through to the legendary realm, who in this world would dare to disrespect the Dai clan? The Dai clan's patriarch had been sullen for this period of time, and a trace of ruthlessness appeared on his face. When that day comes, we'll slowly settle the score with them. The Grand Elder also nodded and agreed with the patriarch's words. The young experts that we've secretly trained in the Land of Thousand Despair and the Land of Mountain you will soon be put to use. After this period of time, we'll slowly get rid of Zhu Xingxing and bring the experts from the Land of Mountain Yu to our Dai clan. Let's see who dares to touch our Iron Mountains. Both of them shared the same hatred for the enemy, and imagined the days when they could hold their heads high in the future. However, both of them were very clear that the current situation was really difficult. Given the current situation, they might really have to bleed a lot to appease the various countries. Bleed, bleed. The patriarch gritted his teeth. One day, they'll have to pay back the blood they've sucked from us tenfold. And the Grand Elder had the same thought. He stretched his back and said to the patriarch, Come, let's go outside to get some fresh air. It's been a day. The two of them walked out of the royal palace's conference hall and walked to the wide square in front of the main hall to breathe in some fresh air. Suddenly, a voice that could practically cover the entire capital sounded out by the ears of everyone in the Dai Kingdom's capital. This humble Taoist is Ling Su. His voice shook the ears of countless people. I came uninvited, and I hope your Majesty and the Grand Elder can forgive me. Chapter 11:13. The voice was so sudden and shocking that almost no one could react in time. There was only one question in everyone's mind. Who is Ling Su? From the previous two words, Ling Su should be a Taoist priest. Where did this Taoist priest come from? In this world, there were many people who didn't know about ancestor Ling Su from Laojun Temple. But among these people, the current head of the Dai family and the Great Elder were definitely not included. The moment they heard old Taoist Ling Su's voice, the two instantly realized that it was bad. The people from Laojun Temple had come to kill them. Taoism had long said that the Dai family had to give an explanation, but the Dai family actually didn't pay much attention to it. Taoism had been quiet for too long, so much so that everyone felt that as long as they didn't bully the people of Taoism in their territory, they would be fine. Now, the result of the Dai family not paying attention was that ancestor Ling Su from Laojun Temple had come to kill them. No one knew where old Taoist Ling Su's voice came from. Even the peak legendary guards in the palace were the same. Everyone looked around blankly, not knowing where old Taoist Ling Su was. The Great Elder was only shocked for a moment, but he immediately regained his composure. He calmly ordered the experts in the palace, extinguish the lights. The palace was brightly lit. If the other party came to kill them, wouldn't they become a target for no reason? Once the lights were extinguished, everyone was in the dark. This was their territory, and they had the home advantage. With the familiar terrain, they could definitely make old Taoist Ling Su unable to come and go. The Great Elder felt that the opportunity had come when he thought of the deterrent effect that the Dai family would bring to all parties if they could make old Taoist Ling Su stay. Just as he was worrying about how to establish his authority, old Taoist Ling Su came knocking on his door. Previously, the Dai family had said that they were very humble. Using old Taoist Ling Su and Taoism to establish their authority would let all parties see the Dai family's strength. Then they would take the initiative to reconsider their attitude towards the Dai family. The guard in the palace of Dai Nation could be considered well-trained. As soon as the great elder gave the order, all the lights in the surroundings were extinguished without any hesitation. The entire palace was plunged into darkness instantly. At least 20 guards quickly surrounded the clan head and the great elder, surrounding the two of them. They were about to escort the two of them to the sturdy main hall. Suddenly, a strange feeling enveloped everyone's body. In the darkness, everyone seemed to see a white shadow flash across the sky, but no one could see it clearly. Everyone was paying attention to their surroundings, afraid that an assassin would rush out of one of the rooms. Who would pay attention to whether or not someone would fly down from above. Even if someone were to fly, that person would be one of them. Appear. A short but powerful voice rang in everyone's ears. Everyone felt their bodies tremble and their ears buzzed. In that instant, it was as if some kind of distracting thoughts rushed into their minds, and they even forgot to focus on guarding against the assassin. At this moment, an unlucky star descended. Puff, puff! The heads of the two expert guards were hit by some unknown attack, and they exploded into two bloody gourds. At the same time, a figure swooped down from above and went straight for the heads of the clan head and the great elder. Before the crowd could be awakened by the splattering blood from the two guards' heads, the figure had already reached the top of the clan head and the great elder's heads. Puff, puff! The crowd only heard the sound of liquid spraying, and there were already two more standing corpses in the crowd. In the blink of an eye, the heads of the clan head and the great elder, who were surrounded by the crowd, had already been taken away by the figure who had swooped down. Because their bodies were protected by the crowd from all directions, the two of them were actually still standing on the spot without falling. The figure who had just swooped down jumped into the air in coordination with another shout of "Appear!" and disappeared without a trace. This series of actions seemed to have been practiced countless times, and it was incomparably nimble. By the time the guards recovered from the shock of the shout, they discovered that the noble clan head and the great elder had already become two headless corpses. Catch the assassin. The great elder has been assassinated. The king can't hold on any longer. Countless panicked voices rang out, causing even more guards and experts in the surroundings to be in a state of panic. In the midst of the panic, no one noticed that there was an additional figure on the roof of the Dai Kingdom's palace's conference hall. At this moment, the figure had already piled a large pile of explosives together. It had to be said that the Dai Kingdom's palace was extremely sturdy. Even though there were 10 tons of explosives on the roof, it didn't crush the roof of the hall. At first, Wang Sheng was afraid that too many explosives would affect the innocent. However, he later remembered that the Dai Kingdom's palace was built on a mountain, and the ordinary people lived at the foot of the mountain. Even if the entire palace was blown up, it wouldn't affect the ordinary people in the slightest. The high and mighty monarch had artificially elevated his status without limit, so his residence was at least a few miles away from the ordinary people's residences. What was there for Wang Sheng to be afraid of now? Since there wouldn't be many innocent people harmed, Wang Sheng immediately piled up the 10 tons of explosives on the roof of the conference hall. After setting up the delay fuse, he shouted the 6-word formula. Heavy snow carried the old Taoist Ling Su down from the sky. Without stopping, he grabbed Wang Sheng with his claws and flew off into the distance. Originally, the old Taoist had wanted to go on a killing spree before leaving, but Wang Sheng immediately rejected the idea. If he wanted to kill someone, it would be easier to do so after the Dai Kingdom's palace had exploded. The old Taoist had always valued Wang Sheng's opinions, and this time was no exception. Although he didn't know what the effects of the explosion would be, he was willing to listen since Wang Sheng was so serious. Heavy snow carried Wang Sheng and the old Taoist for a full 20 miles before landing on a wasteland. This was strongly requested by Wang Sheng. Heavy snow wanted to fly in the air, but Wang Sheng forced him to land. If they were to be affected by the 10 tons of explosives in the air, who knew what would happen? It was safer to stay on the ground. Is it necessary to fly so far? The old Taoist felt that Wang Sheng was making a mountain out of a molehill, but he was just saying it. He had just taken the heads of the Dai, family's master and great elder. This plan was so successful that it was surprising. Let's wait and see. Wang Sheng was counting down in his heart. When he felt that it was about time, Wang Sheng covered his ears with his hands. Almost there. The old Taoist didn't think much of Wang Sheng covering his ears. They were so far away, at least 20 miles. Was he afraid that his ears would be damaged? Boom. First, there was a glaring explosion. After a few seconds, a deafening sound came from the direction of the palace. Even with the old Taoist cultivation and Wang Sheng's warning, he was still shocked by the deafening sound. At the same time, there was a huge tremor under their feet. It was as if the ground was shaking. Chapter 11:14. After the ground stopped shaking, Wang Sheng let go of his ears and said to old Taoist Ling Su, who was still in shock, "All right, let's go back and kill them." The old Taoist was almost dragged on a heavy snow's back by Wang Sheng. By the time heavy snow flapped its wings a few times and returned to the mountain where the Dai Kingdom's palace was located, the two of them could no longer find a single intact building in the palace. The conference hall, which had been high and mighty just now, was nowhere to be seen. All that was left was a huge pit that was several meters deep, and the smell of gunpowder filled their nostrils. Within a radius of 2 miles, not a single building was left standing. All that was left was a huge pit that was several meters deep, and the smell of gunpowder almost filled their nostrils. The two of them were already prepared, and had already put on protective goggles and masks. When they saw this scene, the old Taoist was shocked, even though he was already mentally prepared. It was no wonder that Wang Sheng had to fly 10 miles away from heavy snow. If he had stayed here or flown in the sky, there was no telling what terrible consequences would have happened. "Let's do it," Wang Sheng said to the old Taoist, and was about to jump off heavy snow's back. "Don't kill women and children." The old Taoist hurriedly warned Wang Sheng, and then jumped off heavy snow's back before Wang Sheng did. Wang Sheng was a little late, and directly jumped onto the square at the entrance of the conference hall. The square was very big, and there were many people there. Almost all the guards who wanted to protect the Dai family master and the great elder were gathered in this direction. Of course, they were also the group of people who were closest to the explosion of 10 tons of explosives, apart from the servants and guards in the conference hall. It had to be said that when one's cultivation reached the peak of the legendary realm, one would indeed have some formidable power. Even if 10 tons of explosives exploded less than 50 meters away, more than 10 of the dozens of people would still survive. However, that was all, and they only survived. Even though the fragments of the conference hall that were stirred up by the explosion did not hurt their bodies, the huge shock wave and powerful sound waves still shocked the guards. They stood there in a daze and did not know how to react. Wang Sheng had experienced similar situations on Earth. The most dangerous one was when Wang Sheng was shot by the enemy's large-caliber artillery 3 times after he had sniped a target. If Wang Sheng had not escaped quickly and gotten out of the artillery's coverage, he might have been smashed to pieces. Even so, the shock waves and sound generated by the intense explosion of the large-caliber cannons made it so that Wang Sheng could not hear anything for at least 3 hours while he was escaping. Even his body felt somewhat unbalanced. This was caused by the vibration of the semicircular canals due to the explosion. Now, these guards were within the range of the explosion. Even though their bodies were extremely strong and they withstood the power of the explosion, without any preparation, their ears were still deafened and they could not hear anything. When Wang Sheng charged over with incomparable ferocity, even though they could see Wang Sheng's figure through the burning flames, for some reason, their bodies refused to obey. At least 4 of them could only watch helplessly as Wang Sheng used a pitch-black knife to slice through their necks and stab into their hearts. They did not know how to resist at all. The rest of the people knew how to resist, but half of them couldn't move properly. With great difficulty, they wanted to attack, but they couldn't help but fall to the ground. Only when Wang Sheng's canine teeth pierced into their vitals did they feel like they had returned to their bodies. However, at this moment, he could only feel the pain. There was nothing he could do to reverse the situation. There were less than 3 experts who could truly fight back. However, their movements were also affected, be it the speed or accuracy of their attacks. They couldn't be compared to when they were at their peak. It was already their limit to barely make a move. Among these 3 experts, one was killed by Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow. Wang Sheng rushed to the front and killed another fiercely. The last one was almost a threat to Wang Sheng. Unfortunately, he didn't see, hear, or feel the huge snow carving that was flying rapidly behind him. Heavy snow grabbed the expert in the air with just a claw. He didn't care about Wang Sheng and directly flew to an unknown place with that guy. Anyway, when Wang Sheng saw heavy snow again, his curved beak was stained with blood. He probably treated that expert who was at the peak of the legendary realm as the most delicious, nourishing food. After dealing with the guards of the Dai family in the square, Wang Sheng gave a stab to each of the guys who were missing half their bodies, ending their suffering. Then, he killed his way further away. As long as it was within the range of the palace, apart from the women and children that the old Taoist had just mentioned, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist would not show any mercy. Even some of the female experts were not spared. They had combat power and were not the women and children that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had mentioned. Within the palace, the most elite group of experts had just gathered in the square and had been bombarded by 10 tons of explosives. Now, the strongest ones left were only in the legendary realm. Occasionally, there were a few experts who might even be at the peak of the legendary realm, but they had already been filtered by the old Taoist Ling Su once. The old Taoist killed people according to the level of their cultivation, starting from the higher ones, then the lower ones. After that, the strongest person that Wang Sheng had encountered who could fight was only an expert in the late legendary realm, who was discovered in advance by Wang Sheng in the dark and killed with an arrow. Under such circumstances, there were only 2 people, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist, and they had no intention of fighting with the experts of the Dai family. As for the old Taoist, he was here to establish the prestige of the Laojun Temple and Taoism, so he had no intention of showing mercy. The palace was in flames, and countless people were running in panic. In the panic, they had lost the ability to distinguish between friend and foe. There was even a group of eunuchs and palace maids who were directly killed by the palace guards of the Dai family. There were battles almost everywhere, and there were dead bodies everywhere. Wang Sheng had only killed about 100 people, and he could no longer feel that there were many threats around him. After killing to this extent, presumably the Dai family and other families should have already understood the feeling of the anger of the Laojun Temple, right? Wang Sheng used the 6 words formula of the 9 symbolic words to call out to the old Taoist a few times and took the lead to return to the square of the conference hall. After a few minutes, the old Taoist also rushed over, covered in blood. Seeing the situation of the old Taoist, Wang Sheng lowered his head to look at himself and saw that he was also covered in blood. However, this time, it was really delightful. The 2 only stayed in the square for 2 minutes, and heavy snow flew over from nowhere. Before heavy snow landed, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist jumped on the back of heavy snow. While flying, heavy snow did not forget to swallow the half leg in its mouth, and then let out a long cry of joy, flapped its wings, and flew straight into the sky. The palace of the capital of the Dai nation had been turned into ruins. Countless people in the capital were awakened and were rushing to the palace, intending to put out the fire and save people. No one noticed that in the dark sky above their heads, there were 2 people and a hawk who were covered in blood, flying to an unknown place. Chapter 11:15. The monarch of the Gan Kingdom had been very unhappy recently, due to the fact that they had schemed against Wang Sheng and Taoist Ling Su. For the sake of greater benefits in the future, they had no choice but to lower their heads and fork out 450 million gold coins as compensation. On top of that, they had even lost 2 elders. Although the loss of gold coins was not enough to make them feel bad because of the peerless treasures, The loss of 2 elders and 45 legendary experts was enough to make any major vassal state die of heartache. If it was a smaller vassal state, so many experts were almost the high-end force of the entire state. If they were all killed at once, it would directly lead to the destruction of the state. This debt must be settled in the future. Not only Wang Sheng, but also the Laojun Temple. Did they really think that it would be enough for them to compensate us after killing so many of our disciples? While he was thinking, an important minister of the Gan Kingdom, who was also an elder of the Gan family, rushed in. Because he was running too fast, the elder actually tripped over the doorsill and almost fell head first to the ground. Fortunately, his cultivation was not bad, and after a few stumbles, he stood firm in time. Marquis, something big has happened. The elder hurriedly reported to the monarch of the Gan Kingdom, regardless of the fact that he had just lost his manners in front of the monarch. As he spoke, he handed over an animal skin scroll in his hand. This animal skin scroll was obviously used for messenger birds. It was small and tough, and the small words could record a lot of content. Seeing the animal skin scroll handed over by the elder, the monarch of the Gan Kingdom knew that there was some news. Could it be that the Dai family had a chance to take advantage of it? Or was the Shangyue Kingdom losing again and again? The Marquis was a Marquis after all, and his ability to maintain his composure was much better than that of the elder. He glared at the elder with slight dissatisfaction. The elder might not have noticed that his voice was trembling a little. He reached out and took the animal skin scroll from the elder's hand and immediately frowned. Not only was the elder's voice trembling when he spoke, but he also clearly felt that the elder himself was trembling when he took the animal skin scroll. Even he himself was not aware of it. What was this big matter? What could make the elder excited to this extent? The Marquis's heart was also in his throat. Could it really be a huge matter? With a sense of anticipation, Marquis Gan slowly opened the animal skin scroll. With just a few glances, his anticipation had completely vanished, leaving only fear in his heart. This is really? When the Marquis spoke, he seemed to be trembling. Because he was too nervous, his lips instantly became dry, and he had to stick out his tongue to lick them. He didn't realize that his body was actually trembling uncontrollably due to fear. Really, the elder continued to speak with a trembling voice. We have 4 people over there, and they sent back the same message. Other than a slight discrepancy in the number of people, everything else is the same. How big is the discrepancy? Marquis asked nervously. 1 is the number of casualties. Some are estimated to be in the thousands. Some are estimated to be only 5 or 600. The elder hurriedly replied. The other is the people who attacked. One said that it was only Ancestor Ling Su, and the other said that it was Ancestor Ling Su and Duke Changsheng. Summon all the ministers for a meeting. Marquis could only give the order to summon people for a meeting, and his whole body went limp on the throne. He looked at the elder, who wasn't much better now, and saw the fear in each other's eyes that couldn't dissipate. The Dai country's royal palace was attacked, and before the attack, Ancestor Ling Su reported his name, and he didn't show any mercy. The Dai country's king and great elder were all beheaded, and the entire royal palace was turned into ruins. The report of those who died, and there was at least 500, and the highest was more than 1,000. Although he didn't know how many experts there were in the Dai country's royal palace, he could refer to the Gan country. In the Gan country's royal palace, there were no less than 50 legend rank experts, and the other 7th and 8th realm experts directly exceeded 600 or 700. If the harem maids and servants were included, the total number would definitely be more than 1,000. The entire royal palace was turned into ruins, and it was said that it happened in an instant. How many people died in there? The reported number of more than 1,000 was no exaggeration. When he thought of how the Dai country's king and great elder were easily beheaded by Ancestor Ling Su under heavy protection, and even killed so many expert guards, Gan country's king felt a chill on his neck. Why was the Dai country's royal palace visited by Ancestor Ling Su? It was because the Shangyue country, which was secretly controlled by the Dai country, colluded with the Dao sect traders to attack several Dao sect masters, and Ancestor Ling Su was among them. Therefore, Dai country would be crazily retaliated by the Dao sect. This was to establish prestige. The problem was that Gan country had done the same thing. Gan country's 45 experts ambushed Ancestor Ling Su and Wang Sheng on their way back to the old Supreme Lord Temple, and in the end, they were killed. The only difference between him and Daigua was that Gangua, for the sake of his future benefits, coupled with the fact that he had just obtained a large amount of benefits from the peerless treasures, he did not care about gold coins. So he decisively decided to compensate Duke Chongsheng and old ancestor Ling Su with 450 million gold coins and the lives of 2 elders. On the other hand, Dai countryside was said to have only sent an insignificant elder to the old Supreme Lord Temple. No one knew how the discussion went, but their attitude was obviously not right. Thank goodness. Fortunately, Gan country compensated without hesitation. At this time, the Marquis of Gan country no longer felt the pain in his heart, leaving only a strong sense of luck and uncontrollable fear. The Great Elder really had a good eye for people. As early as in the inner circle of the Thousand Despair, he already knew that the combination of Wang Sheng and Ancestor Ling Su couldn't be provoked, but the others didn't believe it. As expected, the bloody lesson made them remember this point. Now, I'm afraid that the matter of the Dai country's royal palace was also added. The news said that Wang Sheng might be involved, which was not surprising at all. If this was the case, then when facing Wang Sheng in the future, he would have to be more careful. At least before the secret of the Thousand Despair was revealed, Gan country must not have a conflict with Wang Sheng. Even if he wanted to settle accounts in the end, he would have to hide behind others first and wait for someone to take the lead. Until the arrival of the ministers, the Marquis of Gan country's body trembled without stopping, and he was scared to death. The same scene happened in many places. It could be said that other than the Dai country, where there were no more kings that could be scared to the point of trembling, the other kings more or less trembled for a period of time. The Dao sect had been low-key for too long, so long that everyone knew that there must be experts in the Dao sect, but they stood aloof from worldly affairs and wouldn't fight with others for anything. So everyone subconsciously ignored the terrifying power hidden under the Dao sect's calm surface. If it wasn't for the matter of the Shanyue country and the Dai country this time, everyone would have forgotten this point. In the end, the Dao sect used such a way to make everyone tremble to announce that the dignity of the Dao sect was not to be violated. If anyone dared to offend them, please look at the fate of the Dai country's king and the Great Elder. Chapter 11:16. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su were still thanking Heavy Snow for accompanying them on the long journey in the core inner circle of the land of Thousand Despair. Various parties had already begun to desperately inquire about the casualties in the Dai Kingdom's palace. What could be confirmed now was that the heads of the monarch of Dai Kingdom and Great Elder had been taken away, as well as the guards present at that time. None of them survived. Many people in the harem had also died, but the specific number was only estimated by various parties. It was similar to the information obtained from Gan Kingdom, at least 500 to 600 people, and at most 1,000 people. Daigua originally wanted to seal off the news, but the experts in the capital were basically all in the palace. Almost all the experts in the palace had been captured in one fell swoop, and no one could stop those experts with ulterior motives from entering the ruins of the palace to investigate. Apart from the king and the Great Elder, all the other important elders had been sent out to various countries. There was no one in the capital who could take charge. This caused the entire kingdom of Dai to be in a mess. It had almost become a defenseless city. Under such circumstances, in order to get more accurate information, the spies in Dai Kingdom did not hesitate to expose their identities and forcibly went up the mountain of the palace to check carefully. At noon on the third day, various parties finally had more detailed information. Judging from the traces in the ruins of the palace, there was more than one person who did it, especially the violent explosion at the beginning, which was followed by the voice of ancestor Ling Su. That explosion was the key to turning the entire palace into ruins. The assembly hall of the Dai Kingdom's palace was the center of the explosion. That place was directly turned into a huge pit of several feet deep, and the assembly hall had long disappeared. There was a strong smell of gunpowder at the scene. Some people remembered that when the legendary killer of Godly Might Prison, Bloodsaber, assassinated Wang Sheng, there was also an explosion in Duke Chongqing's residence, which also had the same strong smell of gunpowder. Obviously, Duke Chongqing was among the people who did it. It was not strange. Wang Sheng was a layman disciple of Laojun Temple. It was said that he was the junior brother who was accepted as a disciple by ancestor Ling Su on behalf of his master. It was not strange at all that Wang Sheng followed such an opportunity to kill the Dai family. Was there a problem with the senior and junior brothers attacking together? It seemed that there were only two people fighting in the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord's observation. Although many people in the palace had died in all sorts of strange ways, experienced people could tell that some of the people on the periphery had gone mad after receiving a huge shock in the darkness and killed each other. Those who really died under the hands of ancestor Ling Su and Wang Sheng were all concentrated in the inner circle with the main hall as the center. In the middle of the night, the Dai Kingdom's guards didn't dare to casually enter the royal palace. They only entered after dawn the next day. The spies from the various kingdoms also used their respective abilities to infiltrate the royal palace. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the tragic scene on the square in front of the conference hall. Broken limbs were everywhere, and the entire square looked as if it had been dyed in blood. The smell of blood was so thick that it would give people nightmares if they had never experienced it before. Countless flies buzzed around, so dense that they could almost block people's vision. It was easy to imagine that the dismembered corpses were definitely the result of that explosion. But there were also quite a number of complete corpses. But what was more terrifying was that the complete corpses displayed fatal wounds, which indicated that these people had been killed in one strike. Everyone could recognize who the complete corpses belonged to. Those who had blackened faces were also recognized after being cleaned. It could be said that among the famous experts in the Dai Kingdom, half of them were gathered here. To kill such a level of expert with just one strike, just how terrifying was the opponent? The Dai Kingdom's king and grand elder's corpses were also confirmed. They were clean and tidy, just that their heads were missing. Obviously, they had been killed before the explosion. The feeling that Wang Sheng gave everyone was that he was only in the 7th or 8th stage realm, so it was impossible for him to have such an ability. Then, the only possibility was ancestor Ling Su, who had a powerful cultivation base. One person facing so many experts and killing them without needing a second strike. Just what kind of hopeless realm was this? In other places, there were even more corpses. Basically, as long as it was an expert that Dai Guogua could count, everyone slowly found them. Of course, there were only corpses. All of them were killed in one strike, without any exception. In addition to these, there were no traces of other people coming in. In addition, someone found evidence of Wang Sheng's presence. Several experts had died under the heavy arrows of the heavy sniper crossbow. Even the almost deformed heavy arrows were left in place, and there was no time to clean them up. Obviously, this was irrefutable evidence. This also confirmed the reputation of Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow being able to pose a threat to experts in the legendary realm. Even if Wang Sheng's cultivation was not high enough to threaten the lives of legendary experts, as long as Wang Sheng carried a heavy sniper crossbow with him, there would be no problem at all. According to the statistics of all parties, the number of Dai family experts who had died directly in the hands of ancestor Ling Su and Wang Sheng exceeded 400. In addition to those killed by the explosion, the one with the lowest cultivation was in the 7th stage realm. No matter how low the realm of the guards was, they didn't put them in their eyes at all and directly let them go. As for the women and children, except for those who were killed by the collapse of the house in the beginning of the explosion, the two did not touch any of them. On the contrary, there were a large number of female experts who were neatly beheaded without mercy. They had principles, but when it was time to kill, they didn't hesitate to act and killed decisively. A series of comments could be thrown on ancestor Ling Su without any doubt. Detailed news spread back to all parties. The first thing they felt was not that the Dai family's vitality was greatly damaged, and they could take the opportunity to take advantage of it, but a thick fear that couldn't be dispelled. It was too damn scary. According to the news that came back, Ancestor Ling Su sneaked into the Dai State's conference hall alone, and not a single expert of the Dai State found out. After Ancestor Ling Su calmly beheaded the king of the Dai State and the Great Elder, he set up a terrifying explosion, and with Wang Sheng covering with a heavy sniper crossbow, the two of them bathed the entire Dai State's palace in blood. There were only 2 people. All parties asked themselves, the level of the guards in their own palaces couldn't be much higher than that of the Dai State's palace, and the number couldn't be more than that of the Dai State's palace. This also meant that if Ancestor Ling Su and Wang Sheng were willing, they could actually visit any palace at any time and place. At this time, if there was any king who could sleep well, that would be a ghost. One had to know that there were only 2 people from the Dao sect this time. The huge Dao sect only sent out 2 people from the Grand Supreme Lord Temple, and it scared everyone like this. If the 7 sects of the Dao sect, no, there are only 6 sects now, each of them sent out their experts, what kind of horror would it be? No one dared to think about it. All the vassal states were considering redefining their relationship with the Dao sect, and even the Dai family's vitality was greatly damaged after this incident, and everyone could take the opportunity to divide it up. Anyway, the Dai family was already like this. What else could they do? Could they still conjure a bunch of experts out of thin air? On the contrary, the relationship with the Dao sect had to be carefully considered to see how they could be closer. Chapter 11:17. In just a few days, the Taoist temples all over the country had at least 30% more incense offerings. They were all the women of the important figures of the big families who went to burn incense and pay their respects to Lao Jun. At the same time, the elders of the feudal vassals who were stationed in the capital all went to the Lao Jun temple to express their goodwill. Unfortunately, the Lao Jun temple was closing its doors recently and didn't receive anyone. Everyone panicked. What should they do if the Lao Jun temple closed its doors? Then, they immediately thought of Duke Chongqing's mansion. As long as they had a good relationship with Duke Chongqing's mansion, they could indirectly let the Lao Jun temple feel their goodwill. So, the elders swarmed to Duke Chongqing's mansion. They knew that Wang Sheng was definitely not there. He had gone out to kill people and hadn't come back yet. So, they all asked to see Madame Mei in the name of cooperation to buy a batch of Qian Xingyuan's product from Runzi Workshop, Dream Workshop, and Yiyun. To put it bluntly, they were actually giving money to them. However, Wang Sheng had already told Meyer that cooperation was possible. But this time, Meyer didn't show her special skills, nor did she charge them in terms of price. On the contrary, Meyer not only agreed to do business with them, but also accepted their orders. She even gave them an unprecedented 10% discount. In other words, as long as they brought the goods back, they could earn 10% at the original price. Qian Xingyuan's goods were not sold in other places, or Runzi Workshop's goods were not sold. Many people in other places wanted to buy good things, but couldn't get them. As long as they brought the goods back, if they were ruthless, they could earn more than 30%. On average, each vassal state made an order of 100 million gold coins. Gan State, in particular, directly made an order of 200 million gold coins, as if it was repentance. Meyer didn't refuse them and accepted all of them. It was estimated that the goods in these stores would be reduced by half for a long time. Just completing the orders alone would be enough for those grandmasters and great-grandmasters to be busy for a year. The business was done, and they would definitely make a profit, even a big profit. But all parties were even more uncertain. They want to make a big profit by giving gifts. Could it be that they didn't want to give gifts? Fortunately, Meyer finally said something and told everyone not to worry. Half a month later, there would be a public spell meeting in the Lao Jun Taoist temple in the capital city, and all the representatives were invited to participate. After receiving this answer, the representatives of the various parties finally put their uneasy hearts back into their bosoms. However, after being at ease for half a day, everyone started to worry again. The Laojun Temple wanted to hold a Dharma assembly and invite representatives from all over. What did this mean? The heads of the Dai clan's king and the great elder had been chopped off. This Dharma assembly was obviously to display the power of the Laojun Temple and the entire Dao sect to everyone. But what would happen next? Will the Dao sect make use of this opportunity to ascend onto the stage that commands the wind and clouds and become a force that plays a decisive role in the world? The world was such a big stage. If the Dao sect were to appear, what kind of changes would it bring? How should the other parties respond? For the past few days, the higher-ups of the various forces had been gathered together for meetings and discussions. Each and every one of them was frowning and sighing. No matter what, since the Laojun Taoist Temple had issued such an invitation through Mayor, then all the parties had to give enough face. If it was in the past, perhaps they would just give some face. However, the Dai clan's palace had just turned into ruins, and the heads of the Dai clan's king and the great elder had just been chopped off. Which feudal lord would dare to be so impolite? They had to at least send someone at the level of the great elder to attend so that it wouldn't be impolite, and they would even have to present a heavy gift. In addition, even if the Laojun Taoist Temple had any conditions on the spot, perhaps only someone of this level could make the decision. Among all the forces, the one who was the least worried and happiest was probably the royal family. A long time ago, the royal family had already known the attitude of the Laojun Taoist Temple. They didn't want to get involved in the matters of the secular world. If the Dao sect was willing to get involved in the secular world, the great elder temple would have agreed to the second prince's request to be the state preceptor during the rebellion. In the end, the Laojun Taoist Temple's great elder temple didn't care about such a respected title at all. Not only did he reject the second prince, he even rejected the emperor's good intentions. He didn't care about the secular world at all. Since the Dao sect didn't get involved in the secular world, then there was no threat to the emperor and the royal family. On the contrary, the stronger the Laojun Taoist Temple was, the more the other parties wouldn't dare to do anything to the capital. The royal family would be safer, and the emperor's position would be more stable. Of course, the few sinners that Wang Sheng mentioned back then were more and more likely. As for the fighting power of old ancestor Ling Su, the royal family was the least surprised. The three great consecrators had successfully broken through the peak of the legendary realm and entered the 10th stage. They broke through under the reminder of old ancestor Ling Su. To put it bluntly, the three great consecrators had to bow down when they saw old ancestor Ling Su. Old ancestor Ling Su was more terrifying than the three great consecrators. So what if he destroyed the palace of the Dai family? Why didn't the Dai family arrange all the experts in the palace? In this way, old ancestor Ling Su could capture all of them in one fell swoop. That was to say, when the Shangyue kingdom attacked the Dao sect leader, they didn't hurt anyone. Otherwise, how crazy would the Laojun Taoist Temple retaliate? Now, it was the Dai family who was behind the scenes of the Shangyue kingdom. Next, it would probably be the Shangyue kingdom. Nowadays, the royal family loved chaos. The more chaotic the fight, the more opportunities the royal family had. While all the parties were busy making arrangements, Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su finally came out of the land of thousand despair. When the figures of the two appeared at the gate of the capital city, everyone who saw them was stunned. It was not until Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su walked out of their line of sight that they simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. Wang Sheng and old Taoist were wearing the two protective suits that were stained with blood after the massacre in the Dai family's palace. After half a month, the original bright red bloodstains had turned into dark red marks. But the traces on it told the experienced people what kind of bloody massacre they had experienced that day. The two of them had deliberately dressed like this in order to increase the pressure of this massacre on all parties. This was Wang Sheng's suggestion, so the old Taoist did not object. After entering Duke Chongqing's residence, the two of them, who were full of murderous intent, immediately changed their aura. They were relaxed and at ease, like wanderers returning home. Mayer and Rosa were already waiting. When she saw Wang Sheng, Mayor did not care about the blood on Wang Sheng's body. She threw herself into Wang Sheng's arms until Wang Sheng carried her to the training room at the back. In Mayor's mind, so what if Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had killed so many people in the city? They were her lover and family. Rosa smiled and bowed to the old Taoist, then led the old Taoist to wash up. It was not until Wang Sheng put her down that Mei Er seemed to notice the smell on Wang Sheng's body that Mei Er could not help but pinch her nose. "Don't touch me until I'm clean." Chapter 11:18. The little girl was very obedient. She intended to use her seductive techniques on Wang Sheng to her heart's content. Wang Sheng laughed heartily. Ignoring the struggling Mei Er, he kissed her face heavily. Only then did he go to the bathroom he had specially built in the practice room to take a bath. Someone would naturally wash the bloody clothes he had taken off. Wang Sheng lay in the spacious bathtub with his eyes closed, enjoying the bath. Suddenly, there was a sound of water. Someone had entered the bathtub. When Wang Sheng opened his eyes, he saw that Mei Er was wearing a gauze dress, half covering herself as she walked to his side. After being soaked in the water, the thin gauze was almost transparent. Wang Sheng couldn't bear to blink. "I'll serve you in the bath." When Mei Er opened her mouth in a sweet voice, Wang Sheng felt that his whole body was about to melt from this sentence. Just as he was about to hold Mei Er's slender waist, Wang Sheng's hand was blocked by Mei Er. The little girl leaned over Wang Sheng's ear. She didn't care how tempting it was for Wang Sheng to see the scene from this direction. She just said in a sweet voice, "I've asked the Grand Abbey Dean to decide the date. It will be after the spell meeting. Be good." What a mischievous little girl. Wang Sheng suppressed his desire and used the six-word formula to calm his mind. When he turned to look at Mei Er, he saw that she was still secretly giggling. Wang Sheng was so angry that he pulled her over and spanked her but a few times. In the end, Mei Er snickered even louder, and the degree of seduction also became more and more intimate. Wang Sheng had no choice but to use the six-word formula again to suppress it. After calming down, Mei Er didn't provoke Wang Sheng anymore. She wiped Wang Sheng's back obediently. Then, she lay side by side in the bathtub with Wang Sheng, enjoying the unprecedented sense of security and happiness. "What's the latest news?" Wang Sheng put his arms around Mei Er and asked casually while lying down. Even if he couldn't eat her, he could smell her fragrance and feel her smoothness and tenderness. This was also a great enjoyment. "The biggest news is that you and Taoist went to King Dai's palace." Although Mei Er didn't tease Wang Sheng anymore, her hands were still around Wang Sheng's neck. She whispered in his ear, "Then there's the spell meeting of the Laojun Abbey. What about the others?" Wang Sheng knew Mei Er's habit. She would pick the important ones first and put the less important ones later. "Every family has given us orders worth less than 1 billion gold coins. For the next year, the great grandmasters of the villages outside the city and the Pavilion of Delicacy don't have to worry about anything else." Mei Er told them about how everyone rushed to buy things from her previously. "The Gan clan might have been frightened. They alone have given us orders worth 200 million gold coins." As expected, Wang Sheng didn't find it strange at all. Other than the Dai clan, the other families all had the intention of befriending the Laojun Abbey. Although the royal family didn't place any orders, they gave Mei Er many benefits. All sorts of generous rewards were sent to the manor, regardless of whether they were useful or not. There was even a batch of beauties that were directly given to them in the name of Princess Mei Er's maidservants. "What about the Godly Might prison?" Wang Sheng asked. "Any latest news?" The old man from the Godly Might prison came and brought more than 40 heads. Mei Er said with a smile. Rosa checked them. They were all famous experts of the Xia family. After checking them, they took their heads away. Wang Sheng didn't express his opinion. To be honest, the Godly Might prison tormented the Xia family to make the Xia family restless. They couldn't eat or sleep well. It didn't matter if they could kill the important figures or not. However, it seemed to be effective. Under the attack of the Godly Might prison and the Shanyue kingdom, the Xia family was indeed having a hard time. Aki only cared about her younger brother, who was hidden by the Xia family. She didn't have much sense of belonging to the Xia family. She must be happy to torment the Xia family. What about the capital? Wang Sheng asked again. Any movements or important figures coming? Almost every family has sent important figures. Mayor smiled. Basically, it's either the great elder or a few elders coming together. Besides, Mayor seemed hesitant and didn't want to continue. Besides what? Wang Xing didn't care and continued to ask. The Duke of Song sent his daughter over again. When Mayor talked about Song Yin, she always looked a little angry, but she still said it. Song Yin is here too. Wang Sheng was surprised. This was not something that would bring any benefits. Sending a grand elder over should have been more than enough. Yet, Song Yin had come personally. Could it be that something had happened? When Wang Sheng thought about Song Yan's intention, Mayor became unhappy again. She turned her head away angrily and ignored Wang Sheng. However, her hands were still wrapped around Wang Sheng's neck, refusing to let go. What about the Dai family? Wang Sheng secretly laughed at Mei Er's thoughts. He casually asked a question to change the topic. Did the Dai family send anyone? You're right, Duke. When Mei Er heard Wang Sheng ask about the Dai family, she immediately forgot about her previous jealousy. Turning to Wang Sheng, she said, the Dai family has chosen a new family head in the past few days. It is said that this family head will personally come to the capital to apologize to the Laojun Monastery. Stand at attention when you're being beaten. Wang Sheng also smiled. The Dai family's stance is very correct. When it's time to admit defeat, they have a way. Who is this new family head? Do we know about it before? Speaking of which, the Dai family's new family head is related to you. Mayor said with a smile. Guess who the new family head is? Related to me? Wang Sheng was surprised and then began to ponder. The Dai family had contact with Wang Sheng was Dai Huan, but he was already killed by Wang Sheng. Daisy was also dead. An elder, Dai Wuji, died in Wang Sheng's hands, and the great elder also died in Wang Sheng's hands. Now that the family head and the new great elder were dead, who else could be related to Wang Sheng? While he was pondering, Wang Sheng's eyes lit up. That's right, the source spirit that Dai Huan stole from the Song family's forbidden area had turned into a 9-star source spirit after swallowing each other. That source spirit was said to be given to Dai Huan's younger brother, Dai Xiao. Could it be that the Dai family's new family head is Dai Xiao? After Wang Sheng pondered for a bit, he asked his own guess. So hateful. Mei Er's small fist lightly hammered Wang Sheng's body as she complained, Can't you deliberately not guess it? Dai Xiao's age is around the same as you and me, right? Wang Sheng did not care about Mei Er's small fist as he asked with a smile. He's 1 or 2 years younger than you and me. Mei Er lied on Wang Sheng's chest as she was too lazy to move. Interesting. After the Song family's new generation took control, the Dai family's new generation also took control. However, the Song family had a strong army, and the Dai family had many casualties. The original situation between the Song and Dai family had been completely reversed. Chapter 11:19. What was Song Yin doing in the capital? She wasn't in the Song nation secretly controlling the huge vassal states. Instead, she came to the capital to participate in this Dharma assembly. Wasn't she afraid that Song Honda would seize power in the Song nation? Those experts were all trained by Song Honda. With this doubt in mind, Wang Sheng finished his perfect hot bath under Mei Er's attentive service. His entire body felt refreshed. It was indeed more comfortable to be home. At night, he naturally had a sumptuous dinner with the old Taoist, Mei Er, and Rosa. However, at the dining table, Wang Sheng discovered that Rosa's body seemed to have changed. Her face was full of suppressed, amorous feelings, and her cultivation had improved significantly. If not for the enhancement of Wang Sheng's sixth sense as a bridge to the Dao sex inheritance, Wang Sheng might not have discovered the changes in Rosa. During dinner, Wang Sheng didn't say much. It was only when he returned to the bedroom with Mei Er and Rosa that Wang Sheng asked his question. Duke, you noticed? Rosa was very surprised. The way she covered her small mouth was full of mature temptation. I was about to tell you, Mayor, who was at the side, said, recently the sisters in the Grandview Garden have improved their cultivation again. During this time, Rosa wants to let the sisters indulge themselves, so at this point, Mayor was a little embarrassed and couldn't continue. After all, she was still a virgin. However, Wang Sheng instantly understood. So that was why. It had happened once before, but at that time, Rosa almost died due to the imbalance of yin and yang. Fortunately, Wang Sheng used the heaven and earth reversal technique to save Rosa. However, the price was that Wang Sheng's cultivation was destroyed and he had to cultivate again. This time, it didn't seem so serious. It was probably because he had already experienced it once. At the same time, Rosa's cultivation had improved. However, there were many sisters in the Grandview Garden. Rosa inevitably showed some pure feelings caused by the excessive yin qi. After all, Rosa was also a woman. Duke, accompany Sister Rosa tonight. Mayor ordered Wang Sheng with a smile. Don't refuse. You're just medicine for Sister Rosa. After that, Mayor reached out and pushed Rosa, who was secretly shy, into Wang Sheng's arms. Then she turned around and left. Mayor was extremely jealous of Song Yin, who she hadn't seen for a long time. However, she didn't feel jealous at all of Rosa, who could climb into Wang Sheng's bed at any time. He really didn't know what she was thinking. She actually took the initiative to let Rosa serve her in bed. Rosa seemed to be very proactive. She didn't let Wang Sheng tire even a little bit. She took care of Wang Sheng with care the whole time. While she served Wang Sheng with great pleasure, she also got to vent her feelings freely. After that, Rosa leaned against Wang Sheng's side obediently, sweating and resting. Why are you so tired recently? Puzzled, Rosa asked. Even if it's cultivation, it has to be done step by step. My sisters want to be able to fight as soon as possible. Even if we can't solve the Duke's problems, we can at least make it so that he doesn't have to worry about us, Rosa said faintly. Is there any trouble recently? Rosa had always been obedient to him. Unlike Mayor, who had her own career and was dictatorial in her own field, Rosa was more docile. However, if even Rosa said something like that, it was obvious that something was giving her pressure. A few days ago, someone from Carefree City came looking for me. Rosa didn't hide anything from Wang Sheng. She quickly said, Madam also knows about it. It was the manager of Carefree City's Hall of Assassins. He said that the city lord wanted to apologize to the Duke for not disciplining the people of Carefree City properly. Something like that won't happen again. Carefree City Lord, are you feeling the pressure as well? Wang Sheng asked casually. Xingzhong also started to re-evaluate the advantages he had. Old Lord Guan's display of strength this time was clearly out of everyone's expectations. While all the feudal vassals were nervous, even Carefree City Lord had clearly expressed that he didn't discipline Uncle Li well. It seemed like the city lord had the upper hand recently. Isn't this a good thing? Wang Sheng gently stroked Rosa's face, wiping away the beads of sweat that were about to flow into her eyes, as he said with a smile. Duke, if even Carefree City Lord has started to apologize, then this isn't a good thing. Rosa smiled bitterly and said, We all understand. We know that the Duke just wants to bear all the pressure by yourself. We are very grateful for the Duke's love. We just hope that the Duke knows that the person we are loyal to will only be the Duke from now on. We will try our best to help the Duke deal with the Duke's enemies. There's no need to rush for instant benefits. Wang Sheng smiled and said, Don't worry. Cultivate as you should. There's no need to rush. I like the independent personalities of the sisters and admire the beauty of the sisters. What you should do now is to display your beauty and abilities to your heart's content to create a wonderful future for yourselves. Leave everything to me. And this sentence was simply the greatest weapon against all women. As long as they heard this sentence, there was no woman who wouldn't be moved. Rosa was the same. She responded coquettishly and leaned against Wang Sheng. She was as blissful as a chick curled up under its mother's wings. The two of them didn't continue speaking, but both Rosa and Wang Sheng knew that the women had already sensed the impending danger. Wang Sheng thought a dream of the Red Chamber. Right now, Wangsheng's situation was very similar to Ningguo residents and Rongguo residents. Laojun Temple also showed its muscles, and its reputation was like the sun in the sky. Duke Chongqing's residence was in a glorious moment. The emperor favored them at all costs, and all the feudal lords wanted to use orders of hundreds of millions of gold coins to please them. But after the prosperity, Ningguo residents and Rome residents were left with a vast expanse of white land. It was really clean. Could it be that Wangsheng's future would be like this? In the end, it was because Wangsheng's time in this world was too short. There was no way to establish a huge force that was completely loyal to Wangsheng in a short period of time. Now that he had money and power, he could recruit some masters. But these masters didn't have the kind of loyalty that was willing to die for Wangsheng. The real huge force was the emperor and Laojun Temple, but not Wangsheng. Unless Wangsheng was willing to live under the protection of the emperor or Laojun Temple in the future. But this was obviously impossible. Rosa's words just now actually represented the sisters of Grandview Garden to express their determination to follow Wangsheng to the death. In terms of loyalty, perhaps only Mei and the group of old people who had been following Mei plus Rosa and the sisters of Grandview Garden, were the people that Wangsheng could really rest assured in. Rosa, let everyone get ready. After the Dharma assembly of Laojun Temple, we'll have to trouble those great gurus to play music for everyone. Wangsheng hugged Rosa and said with a sigh, "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."